Chapter 1747. Xue Mingming returned to Enlin's storage ring. It needed time to digest the spirit patriarch's knowledge. Enlin did not disturb it. This Xue Mingming was both the blood ancestor and not the blood ancestor at the same time. It kept saying that it was a brand new life, but its karma with the blood ancestor was not clear. As he conversed with the spirit patriarch, he put himself in the shoes of the blood patriarch. No one would believe that Xue Mingming had nothing to do with the blood ancestor. When Xue Mingming reconstructed its physical body and divine soul, perhaps a true blood ancestor would be born. However, Enlin didn't mind. He was confident that no matter what Xue Mingming became, Xue Mingming would never leave him. "Spirit Maiden, let's leave this place," Enlin said. The Spirit Maiden bowed deeply toward the Spirit Patriarch's body. Only then did she float toward the exit with Enlin. "What are your plans for the future?" Enlin asked again. "What's your plan?" The Spirit Maiden was momentarily dazed. Only then did she realize that her final mission had been completed. All of the inheritances in this Spirit Patriarch Palace had been taken away by Enlin. In other words, she had lost her job and was officially unemployed. The four holy beasts were gone, and the Spirit Patriarch was also gone. All that was left was an empty palace, as well as her, who was likely to spend countless years in solitude. Didn't the Spirit Patriarch tell you that you can return to the Tai Chu continent now? If you don't have anywhere else to go, you can come to our 4-9 Immortal sect. I'm the sect leader. If you want to come to the 4-9 Immortal sect, I can just say the word. Enlin patted his chest. "Why would I go there? I don't know anyone." The Spirit Maiden's brows furrowed, and she appeared to be a little dejected. Enlin slapped the back of the Spirit Maiden's head and said, "Don't you recognize me? I'm the sect leader of the 4-9 Immortal sect, the most powerful sect in the entire 4-9 Immortal sect. Isn't it enough for you to have the most powerful backer?" The Spirit Maiden sneered. "How can someone like you be the sect leader? I became the sect master based on my personal charisma." Enlin reached out and pinched the Spirit Maiden's cheeks. A warm smile appeared on his face as he said, "What do you think? Rent is free, water and electricity are all included. You can move in with your luggage." The Spirit Maiden looked at Enlin's smiling face, and she recalled the warm smile on his face when he had returned her head to her. She then slapped his hand away before a nonchalant smile appeared on her face. "Sure, I want to see what kind of sect would allow someone like you to become their sect leader." Thus, the Spirit Maiden accepted Enlin's invitation. The two of them made their way to the exit of the Spirit Patriarch Palace. All of the Void Spirit Tribe mighty figures who had been spying on the palace from afar immediately scattered in fright at the sight of Enlin. The Spirit Maiden looked at the palace, which was as massive as an ancient beast, and she waved her hand lightly. The palace began to tremor violently before shrinking at an extremely fast rate. In the blink of an eye, the gargantuan Spirit Patriarch Palace had shrunk to the size of a palm and landed in the Spirit Maiden's hand. "I'll leave this Spirit Patriarch Palace to you. Please take good care of it." The Spirit Maiden handed the palm-sized Spirit Patriarch Palace to Enlin. Enlin was a little surprised to discover that the energy fluctuations emanating from the Spirit Patriarch Palace were comparable to pinnacle divine tools. He accepted the Spirit Patriarch Palace and nodded with a solemn expression. "Don't worry. As long as the palace lives, I live. If the palace dies, I die." The Spirit Maiden's lips twitched. "You're not serious at all." Her body flashed, and she transformed into a streak of blue light before disappearing into the intricate palace. She was the artifact spirit. As long as the palace lived, she would live. If the palace died, she would die. Enlin naturally knew that the Spirit Maiden's act of entrusting the palace to him was an act of extreme trust. The 4-9 Immortal sect has gained another large-scale mystic realm now. I can use it to train the sect disciples' divine sense power. I'm sure the Spirit Maiden and Bai Ling will have many things in common. Enlin imagined the scene where the two of them would meet, and a hint of anticipation appeared on his face. At this moment, on top of a mountain, a few returned to Void stage mighty figures trembled in fear at the sight of Enlin in the distance. Terrifying, and Lin is far too terrifying. He was actually able to take the Spirit Patriarch Palace away and even abduct the artifact spirit of the Spirit Patriarch Palace. What the hell is going on? We have to report this to the emperors as soon as possible. We can't let him leave this place. That's right. If we can kill him, we'll be able to reclaim the Spirit Patriarch Palace. That would be a supreme glory. All the return to Void Stage mighty figures were extremely excited. Oh, what are you guys chatting about? Why are you guys so happy? A mocking voice suddenly sounded from above the heads of the return to Void Stage mighty figures. They raised their heads and were greeted by the sight of a nightmarish scene. The semi-transparent blue figure of Enlin was hovering in the air above them, looking down at them with a hint of a smile on his face. Enlin. It's Enlin in his spirit body state. How is this possible? All of the Void Spirit Tribe mighty figures were in their spirit body states, but Enlin wasn't a Void Spirit Tribe cultivator, yet he was in his spirit body state. This was simply unimaginable. A faint smile appeared on Enlin's face. Rest in peace. He snapped his fingers, and countless golden soul swords suddenly appeared beside him. The extremely terrifying soul power and bone-chilling sharpness struck all of the return to Void Stage mighty figures present with a sense of asphyxiation. These were the Holy Beast, White Tiger's golden soul swords, the most powerful divine sense spell technique. Even the Sword Essence Emperor was unable to defend against these soul swords, let alone these return to Void Stage mighty figures. In an instant, sword projections fell like rain. The blood-curdling cries of the return to Void Stage mighty figures reverberated throughout heaven and earth, and all of them perished within a few seconds. Soon, Enlin's spirit body floated back into his physical body. Phew! This is the second time I've used my divine sense, and it feels a lot better. Enlin stretched his body as he looked around at the vast heaven and earth around him. It's time to meet up with Xiaolan and the others and get closer to the place where the battle is the most intense. Which direction should I go? He unleashed his peerless divine sense. He wasn't aiming for accuracy. All he wanted was to maximize the range of his divine sense before sensing the energy fluctuations of heaven and earth around him. Soon, Enlin turned toward a certain direction before tearing open a spatial rift and flying toward it. Within the spirit realm's blazing cemetery. At the center of this vast expanse of flames, there was a crystalline skull with black flames emanating boundless flame might. From the powerful energy fluctuations emanating from it, it was quite clear that this was a divine-ranked treasure. A semi-transparent skull, with a black divine halo on its head, was battling a three-headed dragon mutant beast off to the side. A woman in a blue and pink sailor suit was lying in ambush beside a silver flame tree in the distance. Her purple eyes were wide open as she stared at the intense battle taking place before her with a nervous expression. She seemed to be a little excited, and her slender, jade-like hands were already gripping tightly onto the silver flame tree trunk as her slender body trembled lightly. Found it! I've finally found it. The Black Crystal Void Spirit King at the Return to Void Pinnacle Stage. One of the murderers who killed my mother. Chapter 1748. Lu Qianhuan would never be able to forget the scene of Qiu Hong being impaled by the Holy Death Spear, and she would never be able to forget her mother's expression as she died with her in her arms. She swore that she would take revenge one day. Now that the human race was in danger, she was afraid that she would never have the chance to take revenge. So, when the spiritual realm opened this time, she sneaked into the spiritual realm. Even though I'm only at the Return to Void intermediate stage, my ancient Sword Dao physique, coupled with my peerless Sword Dao true intent, should be able to land the killing blow on a Black Crystal Void Spirit King. Lu Qianhuan's eyes flashed like lightning, and she no longer held her six-feathered staff in her hand. Instead, she held a sword. This sword was releasing waves of cold air, and a terrifying sharpness was waiting to be unleashed. The battle between the three-headed dragon and the Black Crystal Soul King had already reached its climax. The shockwaves from their battle shook the earth and shook the mountains. Everything within a radius of 50 kilometers had been transformed into a barren land. The Black Crystal Soul King released its ghostly mist, which even suppressed the boundless raging flames of the blazing cemetery. The soul power of the three-headed dragon surged as it tore apart the ghostly mist and pounced toward the Black Crystal Soul King in a frenzy. The three dragon mouths simultaneously spat out terrifying breaths, severely injuring the Black Crystal Soul King and forcing it to retreat. When Lu Qianhuan saw this, she almost couldn't help but rush out. She was afraid that the Black Crystal Spirit Soul would die not by her hands, but by the three-headed dragon mutant beast instead. Timing was important as well. If the timing wasn't right, the three-headed dragon beast would steal the kill. In the next instant, however, the Black Crystal Soul King condensed a long spear made of pitch-black vines. It ferociously hurled the spear forward, piercing through one of the three-headed dragon's heads. The three-headed dragon screamed in pain. Lu Qianhuan's heart jolted. This was the holy death spear that had killed her mother. The Saint Death Spear was made from the ancient hell vines that grew in the Yellow Springs Divine Mountain, where the death chi was the thickest. It contained a trace of the power of law. Once it was thrown out, any enemy with a lower realm than the thrower would definitely be hit and die. The cultivation base of the three-headed dragon and the Black Crystal Soul King were obviously on par with each other. Thus, the Holy Death Spear was unable to instantly kill the three-headed dragon. Both sides were still fighting to the death, all for the sake of that god-tier item. But in this battle, there would come a time when the victor would be decided. In the end, all three heads of the three-headed dragon were blasted apart by the Black Crystal Soul King's sacred death spear. The Black Crystal Soul King had obtained the final victory. Now the underworld god skeleton is mine. With the dark god skeleton in my possession, I'm much more confident in my chances of advancing to the Dao integration stage. A smile appeared on the Black Crystal Soul King's face. Its spirit body was already riddled with cracks from the three-headed dragon's attack, but it still held the holy spear in its hand and sliced the three-headed dragon's body into several dozen pieces before slowly placing them into its storage ring. Behind the silver fire tree, Lu Qianhuan stepped forward. She gripped her scabbard tightly in one hand and pressed her other hand against the hilt of her sword. Her aura was still extremely restrained. The Black Crystal Soul Spirit was extremely weak right now, but it wasn't time for her to attack yet. A black shadow suddenly appeared from afar. With an extremely terrifying speed, it flew towards the flaming skull in the center of the blazing cemetery. You want to reap the benefits? Dream on. The Black Crystal Soul King roared with laughter as it hurled the holy death spear in its hand. The commotion caused by the battle was so great that it was already prepared to be coveted by other powerhouses. Now, a return to Void Stage Mighty Figure was trying to take advantage of the situation. In that case, sorry, but this return to Void Stage Mighty Figure was the chicken that the Black Crystal Spirit King had killed to warn the rest. The Holy Death Spear pierced through the void and instantly pierced through the return to Void Stage Mighty Figure that was trying to take advantage of the situation. A wail of anguish reverberated through heaven and earth. A Void Spirit Tribe Mighty Figure that looked like a tiger struggled on the ground as the Holy Death Spear rapidly devoured its aura. Without a doubt, this mighty figure was dead for sure. Now's the time. Lu Qianhuan was like an attacking leopard. She stamped her foot on the ground and shot forward like a bolt of lightning. A blue halo of light expanded outwards. The power of extreme frost contained within it instantly dispersed all the flames in the blazing cemetery. Even the ground that was covered in lava was covered in a layer of frost. Snow swirled through the air as frost and ice filled the sky. Lu Qianhuan's sword Dao domain had already enveloped the Black Crystal Soul Spirit. The Black Crystal Soul Spirit's expression changed drastically as it sensed an extremely terrifying sword intent. It was just about to make a move when it discovered that all of its movements had become extremely slow after entering the opponent's sword Dao domain. Lu Qianhuan moved like a bolt of lightning. She flashed toward the Soul Spirit, and a bright blue sword intent soared into the sky. The great ice sword was unsheathed. This was the sword that her mother, Qiu Hong, had forged for her. It was able to regulate the overly powerful and chaotic aura of her ancient sword Dao physique. For this sword, Qiu Hong had paid the price of her life. Lu Qianhuan had a love-hate relationship with this sword. This was also why she had chosen to become a young sorceress despite possessing a heaven-defying aptitude in the Tao of the sword. She had never been able to overcome this hurdle in her heart. When the great ice sword had first been forged, it had been an immortal sword. Now, however, it had already been nurtured into a peerless divine sword. Moreover, it was a divine sword that was most compatible with her sword Tao. In its haste, the black crystal soul spirit only had time to unleash its divine Tao black mist to protect its body. However, that dazzling sword projection stole the color of heaven and earth and cleanly sliced through the black mist it had condensed. Lu Qianhuan was already at the return to void intermediate stage. Now that she had activated her ancient sword Tao physique, her power had risen to the return to void pinnacle stage. Coupled with her peerless sword Tao and divine sword, even the black crystal soul spirit at its peak would find it difficult to block this sword strike, let alone the black crystal soul spirit in its weakened state. The great ice sword tore through the black mist divine Tao and landed on the black crystal soul spirit's extremely sturdy spirit body skull. A sharp tearing sound and a wail of anguish erupted. After the skull was sliced open, the divine sword continued to slice the black crystal soul spirit's body into two. Lu Qianhuan sheathed her sword lightly. A bone-chilling aura emanated from her graceful figure, making her appear like a celestial maiden. The enemy who had once caused her to feel despair had now been sliced into two halves and collapsed to the ground. You're Lu Qianhuan. The black crystal soul spirit's lips twitched as it spoke with great difficulty. You're here for revenge? So you still remember what you've done in the past. Lu Qianhuan smiled, but her eyes were filled with coldness and hatred. There was a bitter expression on the black crystal soul spirit's face. How could it forget what it had done in the past? Because of that incident, it hadn't dared to step out of the void spirit realm for a very long time. Who would have thought that it would be killed in the spirit realm? Lu Qianhuan made a grabbing motion toward the void in the distance. The holy death spear trembled slightly before flying from the void spirit tribe supreme being's corpse in her hand. Then, she refined it in an extremely violent manner. You used this holy death spear to kill my mother. Now, I'll let you have a taste of this holy death spear. After saying this, she suddenly stabbed the spear into the black crystal soul spirit's body. The black crystal soul spirit let out a wail of anguish. However, a sinister smile appeared on its face. Ha! The holy death spear can only insta-kill enemies whose cultivation bases are lower than its wielders. However, my cultivation base is higher than yours. Lu Qianhuan's expression was cold and detached. That's perfect. I don't want you to die too quickly either. I'll stab you a few more times so that you can experience the feeling of death a few more times. That's even better. The black crystal soul spirit's expression faltered, and an expression of shock and terror appeared on its face. At this moment, the holy death spear was pulled out again before stabbing into its body again. The black crystal soul spirit's anguished wails reverberated through the world of ice and snow. Lu Qianhuan was expressionless as she pulled out the holy death spear once again before stabbing it into its body again. Anguished wails reverberated throughout the blazing cemetery. The holy death spear stabbed into the black crystal soul spirit's body over and over again. In the end, the mighty black crystal soul spirit was stabbed to death by Lu Qianhuan's holy death spear. The female gripped the vine spear tightly as she looked up into the sky. It was as if she could pierce through time and see that gentle face. "Mother, I've avenged you," she said softly. Chapter 1749. Lu Qianhuan felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted from her shoulders as she stared at the lifeless black crystal soul spirit. However, her path of vengeance wasn't over yet. She still had an even more powerful enemy, the Infernal Abyss Emperor. The Infernal Abyss Emperor was already a super mighty figure of the Tao integration stage. For a return to Void stage, Sword Immortal to kill, such an existence would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. However, Lu Qianhuan was different. She was a peerless sword embryo, and her transcendental sword techniques could elevate her combat prowess drastically. That, coupled with her ancient sword Tao physique, allowed her to surpass that invisible chasm. As long as the timing is right, it won't be a difficult task to harvest a bunch of enemies. Lu Qianhuan exhaled lightly, as if she was trying to cheer herself up. Enlin is only at the return to Void stage, but he can already kill super mighty figures at the Tao integration pinnacle stage. I don't have cheats like him, but it's not too much for a return of Void stage cultivator to kill a Tao integration initial stage cultivator, right? She shook her head and turned her gaze towards the center of the blazing cemetery. There was also a deity grade item, the underworld god skeleton. This was a supreme treasure that two return to Void final stage mighty figures were willing to risk their lives in order to obtain. Although her goal was revenge, how could she not pick up a treasure that had fallen to the ground? Lu Qianhuan stowed the Holy Death Spear into her storage ring before making her way toward the dark god skeleton. She knew that there were still a few pairs of eyes peeking at her, eager to make a move, but they didn't dare to show their faces. Her stunning sword strike, which had sliced the black crystal soul spirit into two, had already intimidated the surrounding hidden demons. Thus, Lu Qianhuan stowed the dark god skeleton into her storage ring without any obstructions. Just as she was about to leave, her pretty face suddenly changed, and the sharp and terrifying aura around her instantly retracted. She stretched out her hand and directly tore space apart, wanting to escape. Ha ha! I heard from the Swamp Void Spirit King that there's a divine rank treasure here. Where did it go? A hearty laugh rang out from afar, and the space within a radius of several hundred kilometers was instantly sealed, making it impossible for the almighty beings to use spatial power. The might of a Tao integration stage being swept forth from extremely far away, striking fear into the hearts of all living beings present. Lu Qianhuan's heart skipped a beat as an expression of rage appeared on her face. Some mighty figures didn't dare to attack her, but they sold the information to other super mighty figures. What a good way to divert the conflict. Not only did he avoid the danger, he also sold a favor. He was really cheap. Lu Qianhuan was unable to use her spatial ability to escape, so she could only fly into the distance on her sword. Her flying speed was extremely fast, like a blue bolt of lightning. In just one breath, she had flown dozens of miles away. In 6 breaths, she would be able to escape from the sealed space. However, the super almighty behind him was clearly much faster. It soon appeared in Lu Qianhuan's field of vision. The blood-red skeleton had a particularly large head, and it was holding a crimson, sharp scythe in its hand. It had a mocking smile on its face, as if it was a cat playing with a mouse. He. Isn't that the Sword Pavilion Lord of the 4-9 Immortal Sect, Lu Qianhuan? What a rare guest. You've actually come to the spirit realm. I've never eaten a Sword Immortal's divine soul with such a good aptitude. I'm in luck now, the blood-red skeleton said with an unruly and sinister smile. Lu Qianhuan's face was deathly pale as she fled into the distance with all her might. It was the god-engulfing skeleton at the Tao integration pinnacle stage. What kind of luck was this? The spirit realm was so vast, so why did she have to encounter one of the most powerful beings in the Void Spirit tribe? Was her luck that bad? Or could it be that she had already used up all her luck when she encountered the Black Crystal Void Spirit King? Was she really that unlucky now? So it's Lu Qianhuan. You were the one who killed the Black Crystal Void Spirit King just then, right? A sinister voice sounded from behind her. Lu Qianhuan saw a figure that infuriated her. It was the Infernal Abyss Emperor. He was one of the 2 enemies who had killed her mother, and he was also her last enemy. She had initially wanted to wait for the Infernal Abyss Emperor to battle the other powerful beings before taking revenge. However, Never would she have thought that the infernal Abyss Emperor would appear before her unscathed. Moreover, he had an ally at the Tao integration pinnacle stage with him. Sure enough, things wouldn't develop according to her expectations. One misstep, and she would be consigned to eternal damnation. The god engulfing skeleton chuckled. Infernal Abyss, I've heard about you guys. Qiu Hong was killed by you, right? Does this mean that Lu Qianhuan is here for revenge? The two-headed infernal Abyss Emperor nodded. A disdainful smile appeared on its face. That be *th Qiu Hong barged into the void spirit realm. Who would have thought that her daughter would also be the same? She actually barged into the spirit realm. Since we've encountered each other, don't blame me for being cruel and merciless. I'll send her to meet her mother. The two-headed monster spread open its arms and looked at the frantically fleeing Lu Qianhuan with a mocking expression. Come on, I'll give you a chance to avenge your mother. Come and stab me. Lu Qianhuan gritted her teeth, and her body trembled with rage. However, she still continued to flee into the distance. Infernal Abyss, aren't you just bullying me? You've already reached the Tao integration stage. Even if you stand here and let her attack you, she might not be able to harm you. The god engulfing skeleton chortled. The infernal Abyss Emperor also chortled. The two Tao integration stage super mighty figures were closing in on Lu Qianhuan. A sinister expression appeared on the infernal Abyss Emperor's face. I killed Qiu Hong. Now, leave Lu Qianhuan to me as well. Both mother and daughter should be killed by me. The god engulfing skeleton nodded. It had no objections. That divine rank item belongs to me. No problem. The infernal Abyss Emperor replied. I want her corpse. I can use it to refine a soul corpse. The battle hadn't even begun, but the two super mighty figures were already discussing how to split the spoils of war. In the eyes of Tao integration stage, super mighty figures, returned to void stage mighty figures who had yet to attain the divine Tao were merely slightly larger ants. They weren't worthy of their attention. Kami, the infernal Abyss Emperor, transformed into a sinister black monster, and countless tentacles shot toward the female, flying on her sword like venomous snakes. Lu Qianhuan, the person who killed your mother is here, the infernal Abyss Emperor taunted. Just as the infernal Abyss Emperor was laughing loudly, an indescribable chill suddenly enveloped its entire body. Whoosh! An astonishing sword intent erupted from Lu Qianhuan's great ice sword. Like a graceful swan, she turned at an incredible speed and rapidly closed in on the infernal Abyss Emperor. The infernal Abyss Emperor was given a huge fright. Countless tentacles still pounced toward Lu Qianhuan. However, their speed was actually slowed down by the extreme chill of the sword Tao. Lu Qianhuan advanced courageously, dodging the countless tentacles. At the same time, the divine sword in her hand also slashed down. Amidst the snow-white, sharp frost, it seemed as if the sword was reflecting a dazzling light. This was the final killing technique that Lu Qianhuan had prepared for the infernal Abyss Emperor. It was also her most powerful attack, falling clouds of snow. An indescribable sword projection split heaven and earth. The snow-white blade of the sword was tinged with a peculiar color. It was as gorgeous as the first glow of dawn after a snowstorm. The infernal Abyss Emperor didn't even have time to dodge. The extreme sharpness of the sword had already torn its body apart. Then it was frozen solid. A wail of anguish reverberated through the air. A female wielding a divine sword flew toward the infernal Abyss Emperor. Boundless flames of rage burned in her purple eyes. Didn't you tell me to slash you? I'll kill you right now. Chapter 1750. The infernal Abyss Emperor was almost sliced in half by Lu Qianhuan's sword strike. A terrifying frost power spread from the massive gash, threatening to freeze its entire body. The infernal Abyss Emperor was shocked, but it also felt an unprecedented sense of humiliation when it heard Lu Qianhuan threaten to kill it. As a Tao integration stage super mighty figure, it was extremely humiliating for it to be severely wounded by a return to void stage cultivator. At this moment, Lu Qianhuan had already charged toward the infernal Abyss Emperor again. Her terrifying sword intent and astonishing killing intent fused together, causing her sword to explode with even more terrifying might. What the hell? How can a return to Void Stage Cultivator unleash such a powerful sword technique? The infernal Abyss Emperor's expression changed drastically. It wanted to retaliate and kill his opponent, but it discovered that its body was being corroded by the frost power, and its movements were extremely slow. There was no way it could block Lu Qianhuan's second sword strike. Lu Qianhuan's attacks were as quick as lightning. She didn't give the infernal Abyss Emperor any time to react, and she unleashed her second killing technique. She had originally planned to use these killing techniques when the infernal Abyss Emperor was severely wounded. However, she clearly had no other choice now. She could only hope that the infernal Abyss Emperor was weaker than she had imagined, so that she could kill her last enemy before she died. Lu Qianhuan knew that with the god engulfing skeleton around, she wouldn't be able to leave the spirit realm alive. Thus, she had to give it her all to kill her enemy. At this moment, she activated her ancient sword Dao physique to the extreme. Her blood essence was also ignited to the extreme. In contrast to this, she possessed supreme combat prowess that was far superior to her own. Die! Lu Qianhuan roared. At this moment, she was like a peerless sword immortal wielding a divine sword. She unleashed the most stunning sword strike of her life. At this moment, a sword intent pierced through the heavens. Her sword Dao domain spread throughout heaven and earth. Within a radius of 50 kilometers, snow drifted down. The void was eternally frozen. Lu Qianhuan was going to kill the infernal Abyss Emperor with this sword strike. A look of fear appeared on the infernal Abyss Emperor's face. It sensed a lethal threat from Lu Qianhuan's sword strike. This return to Void Stage Cultivator really wanted to kill it. Moreover, she had the ability to do so. Lu Qianhuan wielded her great ice sword and slashed it down furiously toward the infernal Abyss Emperor. The infernal Abyss Emperor hurriedly used its tentacles to block the attack. However, its tentacles, which was extremely rich in soul power, were instantly pulverized by the sword might. Lu Qianhuan had poured everything into this sword strike, and its power was already comparable to that of a Dao integration stage super mighty figure. The divine sword whistled through the air, and it was about to tear the infernal Abyss Emperor's body into pieces. Right at this moment, a blood-red scythe suddenly appeared in front of the infernal Abyss Emperor. The god engulfing skeleton had teleported here. The blood-red scythe collided with the extremely sharp sword slash. The space within a radius of 100 miles trembled, and then the energy of the collision exploded. At the center of the collision between the two god artifacts, there seemed to be red and blue balls of light fighting each other madly. The dispersed sword chi tore the ground to pieces, and the bloodthirsty red light dyed the sky red. Living beings who didn't know better would think that this was a battle between two Dao integration stage super mighty figures. The god engulfing skeleton was forced back several hundred meters by the terrifying sword intent. However, at the same time, Lu Qianhuan also spat out a mouthful of blood and stumbled back in retreat. I'm already at the Dao integration pinnacle stage. Who would have thought that I would be forced back by a return to Void Intermediate Stage Junior? There was a look of astonishment on the god engulfing skeleton's face. Although it wasn't injured, the might of this sword strike had far exceeded its expectations. The infernal Abyss Emperor was also feeling a lingering fear. If this sword strike had landed on its body, even if it didn't die, it would at least be severely wounded. However, Lu Qianhuan is still too impatient. With such aptitude, if her cultivation base could reach a higher level, her chances of successfully exacting her revenge would be much greater. The god engulfing skeleton had already stopped underestimating Lu Qianhuan. It's a pity that she's fallen by my hands now. Ha ha! I'm most excited to personally slay a peerless sword cultivator. As it spoke, the god engulfing skeleton slashed its scythe again. A sharp light flashed through the sky, and it was as if the heavens had been sliced in half by this slash. Lu Qianhuan, who was almost completely drained of energy, raised her sword to defend herself. However, the boundless divine might emanating from the blood-red scythe slashed her into the ground, creating a massive crater. I was so close. Why did things turn out like this? Tears welled up in her eyes as she lay on the crater. There was an expression of indignation on her face. If the god engulfing skeleton hadn't interfered, she could have taken advantage of the fact that the infernal abyss emperor had underestimated her and killed it. However, the heavens still played a joke on her. She was clearly the one with a lower cultivation base than her, and she was clearly the one who was at an absolute disadvantage. However, it turned out that there was an extremely terrifying being behind her, and this being was going to intervene for her. This was truly a joke of fate. Lu Qianhuan gripped her great ice divine sword tightly. Her slender, snow-white legs were bent, and her body was curled into a ball. Blood seeped out from the corner of her mouth, and her pinkish-blue sailor uniform had already been sliced open in the middle. Fresh blood dyed her clothes red. It was already extremely difficult for her to even stand up again. Was she going to die here in the end? She wasn't afraid of death. She was merely regretful that she hadn't been able to completely avenge her mother. "Let me kill this *tch," the infernal abyss emperor said with a cold smile. She dared to injure me. I'm going to extract her consciousness and make her suffer the most terrifying torture. Then, I'll slowly torture her to death. Its body, which had been sliced open by the great ice divine sword, had already healed. However, its surface was still covered in a layer of frost. Countless sinister-looking, pitch-black tentacles transformed into sharp swords, sabers, and spears. All of them aimed their sharp tips at the woman on the ground, who couldn't even move her body. This technique of mine doesn't harm the physical body. It will only torture and kill the consciousness. After all, I still need to refine your body into a soul corpse. Now, I'll let you taste extreme pain. A pitch-black blade descended from the sky and slashed toward the woman who was curled up into a ball on the ground. Lu Qianhuan's heart was filled with bitterness as she looked at the pitch-black blade descending from the sky. An indescribable feeling welled up in her heart. She was indignant, but also transformed into melancholy and an attachment to this world. Right at this moment, a white figure appeared in front of her. He stood there silently, and his clothes fluttered in the wind. At this moment, the entire space around them fell silent. Faced with the terrifying blade, the man lightly waved his sword. A white sword projection instantly shattered all of the soul power attacks. Even the powerful infernal Abyss Emperor was sent flying, wailing in agony. "Let's see who dares to touch Huan." The man's magnetic voice traveled over. Just like that, he stood in front of the woman. He was as still as a pine tree, and he held a long sword in his hand as he faced the two Dao integration stage super mighty figures in the distance. Lu Qianhuan stared at the familiar figure, and her entire body was rooted to the spot. She was in slight disbelief, but her eyes had already turned red. She opened her mouth and wanted to say something. However, the words were stuck in her throat. In the end, however, she still managed to utter the word that she hadn't said for many years. Father. Chapter 1751. The newcomer was Lu Qianhuan's father, the sect leader of the Heavenly Sword sect, Lu Mingxian. Lu Qianhuan didn't think that her father would appear before her at a time like this. However, she already knew why her father was here the moment he appeared. Both of them had the same goal in mind. They were both here for revenge. How? Lu Mingxian, I didn't think that a sect leader like you would dare to venture into the spirit realm. A hint of wariness appeared on the infernal Abyss Emperor's face. Ha! Isn't this perfect? He's just a Dao integration intermediate stage, sword immortal. Why should I be afraid of him? Now that both father and daughter are here, I'll take them all down in one fell swoop. A cruel smile appeared on the god engulfing skeleton's face as it wielded its crimson scythe. As one of the most powerful beings in the void spirit realm, the god engulfing skeleton naturally had the right to look down on Lu Mingxian. It wouldn't be afraid even if there were two Lu Mingxian, let alone one. Lu Mingxian pulled out a pill from his storage ring. As soon as the pill appeared, a green divine light surged through the air, and all living things came to life. Grass and flowers instantly sprouted from the devastated ground, and the extremely rich divine power fluctuations made all of the living beings present shudder with emotion. Without a doubt, this was a priceless godly Dan. Lu Mingxian stuffed the divine pill into Lu Qianhuan's mouth without hesitation. I don't. Lu Qianhuan wanted to refuse, but Lu Mingxian still forced the pill into her mouth. A vast divine power and healing ability healed Lu Qianhuan's injuries at an extremely terrifying speed and allowed her to quickly recover her strength. You shouldn't have come here. Lu Mingxian sighed. Why shouldn't I? If I don't avenge my mother now, I might never have the chance again. Lu Qianhuan yelled with bloodshot eyes. I'll avenge Qiu Hong. Get out of here, Lu Mingxian said. Lu Qianhuan's expression faltered as she looked at the man standing before her. You want to escape? None of you can leave. The god engulfing skeleton pounced toward Lu Mingxian with its crimson scythe. An earth-shattering sword intent erupted from Lu Mingxian's body, and it was as if a divine sword had pierced through the clouds. The earth within a radius of 50 kilometers was instantly pulverized by the sword intent. He held an ancient sword that emitted a dazzling golden light and swung it at the sky. Countless golden sword cheese soared into the sky, slicing the void along the way into pieces of dislocated space. The sword cheese were like dragons and seas, extremely spectacular and dazzling, the golden color illuminating the entire sky. Each and every one of his sword projections was imbued with the essential aura of the sword Dao and could easily pierce through the defenses of a Dao integration stage super mighty figure. The god engulfing skeleton was just about to use its scythe to slice through the sword intent. Lu Mingxian suddenly flipped his ancient sword. Change formation. The golden sword intent that was surging with killing intent a moment ago suddenly unleashed an extremely powerful sealing light, which transformed into countless golden shards that enshrouded the god engulfing skeleton. What? The god engulfing skeleton's expression shifted drastically, and its body faltered in that instant. It had been bound by the countless web-like threads unleashed by the golden shard. A boundless might of the sword Dao erupted forth, transforming into the crushing weight of a divine mountain that made even its bones creak and groan. Lu Mingxian turned toward Lu Qianhuan. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and run. Lu Qianhuan crawled up from the ground. The power of the divine pill was still surging within her body. Not only had she recovered from most of her injuries, but she was also brimming with energy. There was a complex expression on her face as she looked at the male who was trying his best to block her path. I won't leave. If I leave, you'll still die. Lu Qianhuan slowly drew her sword and raised her head to look at the god engulfing skeleton, who was trapped by the golden shard. She once again expended the power of her ancient sword Dao physique without any regard for the price she had to pay. At this moment, a black figure approached from afar. Countless tentacles transformed into countless fearsome black divine weapons that slashed toward Lu Mingxian. Lu Mingxian, I'm going to kill you. The infernal abyss emperor cackled arrogantly. Lu Mingxian, who was currently trying his best to trap the god engulfing skeleton, had no way of defending himself against another Dao integration stage super mighty figure sneak attack. When he entered the range of the infernal abyss emperor's attack, a familiar spatial freeze suddenly enshrouded his entire body. All of the infernal abyss emperor's movements became extremely slow. How dare you? You're actually not running away. It had suffered a setback once before, so it knew how to deal with Lu Qianhuan's strange abilities. It instantly materialized a high-density black sword blade in front of it and slashed forward. The combination of speed, density, and power was the key to breaking through Lu Qianhuan's sword Dao domain. The pitch-black sword blade screeched as it tore through the space that had been frozen by the extreme cold. The great ice divine sword and the pitch-black sword blade collided in this instant. Boom! The void trembled, and energy exploded. The frenzied sword intent pulverized the earth within a radius of several dozen kilometers. The infernal abyss emperor was blasted back by the sword intent, and the black sword blade was covered with cracks. Lu Qianhuan retreated lightly and steadied herself after dispersing the force of the impact. A peculiar flush appeared on her fair and delicate cheeks, perhaps due to the effects of the divine pill. Then, she didn't even need to catch her breath before she continued to charge toward the infernal abyss emperor. The infernal abyss emperor was enraged. It hurriedly defended itself against Lu Qianhuan's relentless attacks. It discovered that Lu Qianhuan's body was surging with energy after taking the pill. Her battle prowess was even faintly superior to its own. Damn it, I'm actually being suppressed by a return to Void Stage Sword Cultivator. The infernal abyss emperor was extremely aggrieved. Not only am I going to suppress you, but I'm also going to kill you. Killing intent surged from Lu Qianhuan's body as her sword intent roared. The division of labor was very clear now. Lu Mingxian was responsible for delaying the god engulfing skeleton, while Lu Qianhuan was responsible for killing the infernal abyss emperor. If Lu Mingxian were to do these two things at the same time, then not only would he not be able to exact his revenge, but he would also lose his life here. This was also the reason why Lu Qianhuan had chosen to stay behind. Lu Mingxian was also slightly dazed when he saw that Lu Qianhuan was actually able to suppress the infernal abyss emperor. He really didn't realize that his daughter had actually grown to this extent in the past 100 years. 100 years wasn't a long time for Dao integration stage super mighty figures. However, Lu Qianhuan's growth in 100 years was already far beyond Lu Mingxuan's expectations. A loud explosion sounded in the air. A dark red sword projection shattered the golden shards. The god engulfing skeleton appeared in the sky again. Lu Mingxian, since you're seeking death, I'll fulfill your wish. It tossed its divine scythe high into the sky. The power of death surged violently and dyed the sky red. Two dark red rivers crisscrossed in the sky, extending into infinity and beyond. Lu Mingxian was standing at the center of the crisscrossed rivers. Lu Mingxian looked up from the ground. He could see countless living beings dying within the dark red rivers. Countless living beings were wailing in anguish. Billions of dense death auras and killing intent were sufficient to strip away the vitality of all living beings before corroding and engulfing them. Within a radius of 500 kilometers, all living beings stiffened as their vitality was severed. Countless plants withered and shriveled, and some were even reduced to dust. All of this was because of the two dark red rivers in the sky. I'll destroy you with this technique. The god engulfing skeleton spoke indifferently. It extended its skeletal hand and pressed downward. Its voice was like a demonic voice from hell. Star engulfing, heavenly river of death. Chapter 1752. Two intertwining rivers descended from sky. Dark red divine Tao light blanketed the entire sky. Boundless killing intent and death intent seemed to be able to engulf the entire world. Lu Mingxian had already been targeted by the river. No matter where he fled to, the river would be able to engulf him. This was a heavenly river that could engulf stars. So how could an ant like him escape? Countless golden divine patterns appeared on the surface of Lu Mingxuan's ancient sword. Each and every golden divine pattern represented a sword Dao that had been cultivated to the extreme. He had already explored the limits of the sword in countless directions. All of the sword Dao turned into a torrential true intent of the sword Dao. It was like a boundless river that was attached to the ancient sword. It was even more majestic than the death galaxy in the sky. An unimaginably sharp light began to radiate from the ancient sword. The sword cultivator, who was standing quietly on the spot, did not say a word and just lifted the ancient sword. The golden sword rose into the sky, and it wasn't very large in the beginning. However, the higher it rose, the larger it became. Over 1,000 feet, 10,000 feet, 100,000 feet, 1,000,000 feet. The god engulfing skeleton could sense a sharp light that struck fear into its heart. The dark red heavenly river of death clashed violently with the golden sword projection. The heavenly river was like a ravenous demon, biting and devouring the golden sword projection in a frenzy. Meanwhile, the golden sword projection was so pure and profound that it seemed to be able to transcend all things. The clash between the two was initially evenly matched. However, in the end, the golden sword projection broke through the heavenly river of death and sliced it in half down the middle. The god engulfing skeleton's expression shifted drastically. It was just about to do something when the golden sword projection had already pierced through space and instantly struck its body. Its Dao body was shattered, and it was pushed back several dozen kilometers. PFFF. Lu Mingxuan's body swayed slightly as he threw up a mouthful of blood. This attack had expended a vast amount of his blood essence. He didn't even have a chance to catch his breath before the red clouds descended upon him again. As expected of the Heavenly Sword sect, as expected of the number 1 sect in the Kingdom of the 9 States. Sect Leader Lu, you're very impressive. To think that you were able to wound me. The god engulfing skeleton flew toward him again. The bones on its chest had been shattered, and there was an extremely thick sword gash on its chest from which golden sword projection wreaked havoc. However, in order to resist my death galaxy, you must have used up all of your strength in that previous attack, right? Ha ha, how stupid. If you abandon that foolish woman, you can escape from here with your strength. But you insisted on staying and fighting to the death with me. Your daughter won't be able to escape, and you're going to die here as well. A mocking smile appeared on the god engulfing skeleton's face. As a Dao integration stage sword cultivator, Lu Mingxian unleashed his full power in an instant. Even the god engulfing skeleton wouldn't be able to block him. However, that didn't matter. After all, the god engulfing skeleton's skin was extremely thick. If you couldn't insta-kill it, then you were going to die. Next, how should I torture you? A Dao integration stage sword immortal. I've never killed such an interesting enemy before. The crimson skeleton grinned. It swung its scythe through the air. Lu Mingxian hurriedly raised his sword to defend himself. The crimson blade suddenly appeared and stabbed toward his chest, but it was blocked by the ancient sword just in time. As the flames burst forth, his body was pushed back by the terrifying force. A dark light flashed across the god engulfing skeleton scythe. Life reaping. Screech, blood splattered through the air. A black scythe-like blade suddenly appeared behind Lu Mingxian and pierced through his chest. Blood quickly spread and dyed his white robe red. The sharp blades began to extend, and like a dark and sharp spiderweb, they tore through the flesh on Lu Mingxuan's chest. When they completely extended to his entire body, they would be able to pulverize his body into pieces of minced meat. Enjoy the beautiful process of life gradually fading away. A sinister smile appeared on the god engulfing skeleton's face. Regardless of whether it's in the void spirit realm or the spirit realm, I'm a god. Anyone who dares to oppose me must die. Lu Qianhuan slashed the infernal abyss emperor aside and turned to look at the male who had been pierced by the black scythe. Her heart trembled violently, and an expression of incredulity appeared on her face. The man who had always been indomitable and invincible in her heart was now quickly fading away. His entire white robe was dyed red with blood. Lu Mingxian was also silently looking at the female in the distance. It was as if he was looking at her one last time. The female's face was reflected in his exhausted eyes, and it was as if his gaze had pierced through time and space and overlapped with another woman. I'm already useless. I've already lost Xiaohong. I can't stand by and watch you die here. Lu Mingxian smiled as he pulled out a translucent small sword from his storage ring. There were complex crimson patterns on the surface of the sword, and it pulsed with astonishing energy fluctuations. He murmured in a low voice, I use my blood essence, my primordial spirit, my power, and all of my sword Dao true intent to nourish this sword. The fluctuations emanating from the small sword in his hand became more and more terrifying. Lu Qianhuan's expression changed drastically as if she had detected something. Tears instantly welled up in her eyes as she shook her head repeatedly. No, don't do this. Lu Mingxuan's aura quickly weakened, and the translucent small sword in his hand became extremely red. There was even a layer of golden light on its surface. Lu Qianhuan knew that this was her father's blood essence and final sword Dao true intent. Forgive me, Huan Huan. You have to live on, the man said with a resolute expression, and the small sword in his hand also shot out at this moment. The small sword pierced through Lu Qianhuan's body. However, it released an extremely powerful sword projection that carried Lu Qianhuan into the distance at an incredible speed. Haha, you want to escape? Dream on. The infernal abyss emperor blocked Lu Qianhuan's path of escape. Countless black blades materialized around it. However, before it could even attack, the small sword had already closed in on its body. The golden blade projection tore through the infernal abyss emperor's body and sliced it in half. The infernal abyss emperor wailed in anguish. Idiot! The god-engulfing skeleton glanced at the infernal abyss emperor. This small sword appeared to be very reserved, but contained the final sword intent of Lu Mingxian. How could a super mighty being of the Dao integration initial stage like the infernal abyss emperor possibly block it? Even the god-engulfing skeleton didn't dare to take the risk. The flying sword carried Lu Qianhuan away from the battlefield at an extremely fast speed. Father, she stared at the figure that was getting further and further away from her. She could no longer see his face, and she would never be able to see him again. Tears finally flowed out of her eyes, and she began to bawl loudly. She disliked her father very much. Ever since her mother had died to forge a sword for her, there had been a deep estrangement between her and her father. This estrangement became even more estranged when her father found a new lover. Over the past 100 years, there had been very little communication between them. However, at this moment, this person whom she detested the most had sacrificed his own life for her. All of this was exactly the same as when her mother had sacrificed herself for her 100 years ago. Why did it have to be like this? Lu Qianhuan's eyes were red from crying. I clearly detest you so much, and I've already distanced myself from you so much. Why did you still sacrifice your own life to save me? No one answered her. The only reply she received was the howling of the bone-chilling wind. On the wreckage of the battlefield, Lu Mingxian had already lost all power to resist. His aura was extremely weak, but his body was still as straight as a sword. It was as if nothing could bend him. Sect leader Lu is truly a loyal person. Your daughter has been saved by you, so you can rest in peace now. The god-engulfing skeleton chuckled. It swooped down with its crimson scythe, preparing to complete the final harvest. Chapter 1753. Frosty winds howled. A vast killing intent crashed down from the sky. Lu Mingxian gripped his sword tightly as he looked at the oncoming god-engulfing skeleton. Even though he couldn't block the god-engulfing skeleton's attack, he was still going to unleash the final strike of his life. Lu Mingxian, will die here today, not because of you, but because... Lu Mingxian suddenly let loose a cry of shock and horror. His waist was grabbed by a person, and his body was abruptly dragged toward another direction. The blood-red scythe fell completely, splitting the earth into two halves. Lu Mingxian saw a man with a handsome face and a pair of deep, piercing eyes. This man was also dressed in a white robe, and he bore a strong resemblance to Lu Mingxian, but he had a different kind of vitality to him. He was a little dazed and incredulous. You are, cut the crap. If it weren't for Lu Qianhuan, I wouldn't even bother to save you. The handsome man spoke with a resigned expression. This man was none other than Enlin, who had unleashed his divine sense and followed the battle to this location. He had initially wanted to kill Lu Mingxian, but he didn't think that he would witness such a terrifying scene. The god-engulfing skeleton wanted to kill Lu Mingxian. Even though he didn't like Lu Mingxian, Lu Qianhuan would be very sad if Lu Mingxian died, right? Furthermore, Lu Mingxian was one of the main forces of the Kingdom of the Nine States against the heavenly human tribe. They couldn't afford to lose him, and Lin didn't hesitate and immediately began to rescue Lu Mingxian. And Lin fled for over 50 kilometers with a man in his arms before releasing Lu Mingxian with a disdainful expression. His storage ring then flashed, and a crystalline disc appeared in his hand. Xiao Fu set up the Karma Star protection formation to protect this detestable man and treat his injuries. And Lin instructed. A delicate little loli jumped out and blinked her bright eyes with curiosity. She couldn't understand why Lin insisted on protecting and treating this detestable man, even though he was calling him a detestable man. 3 seconds later, Xiao Fu figured it out and said excitedly, "Leave it to me." A massive and powerful spell formation instantly formed around Lu Mingxian. Lu Mingxian looked at the white-robed man before him with a complex expression. "And Lin, I owe you a favor, but this is the spirit realm, and most of the powerful beings here are from the Void Spirit tribe, so we should retreat for now. Stop wasting time. You can't even defeat a god engulfing skeleton. Just stay here and watch my performance." And Lin waved his hand impatiently. "You!" Lu Mingxian was infuriated. At this time, the red clouds in the distance were already approaching, and there were also masses of black fog. "Ha! I was wondering who it was. So, it's that mouse that escaped from me." A mocking expression appeared on the god engulfing skeleton's face. "It wasn't easy for you to escape. Why are you taking things too hard and running back to throw your life away?" The infernal Abyss Emperor, who had just reattached his body, also spoke in a mocking tone. The image of Lin fleeing for his life had been deeply engraved into the minds of these two Dao integration stage super mighty figures, and they were both ecstatic to see this. This was great. They could wash away their previous humiliation. "And Lin, you won't be able to escape this time. Die." The god engulfing skeleton charged toward Lin menacingly. And Lin walked out of the Karma Star protection formation and sneered, "Escape." He slowly drew his evil slaying sword. "My apologies, but I'm here to hack everyone here to death." "Hack us to death?" The god engulfing skeleton and the infernal Abyss Emperor both faltered momentarily before bursting into laughter. "Ha ha! Did I hear wrongly? Little Mouse and Lin wants to kill us?" The infernal Abyss Emperor couldn't help but burst into laughter as he clutched his pitch-black belly. He's already forgotten how pathetic he looked when he was fleeing. I don't mind teaching him a lesson that will pierce straight into the depths of his soul. The god engulfing skeleton chuckled coldly as it wielded its crimson scythe. And Lin didn't say anything. Instead, he stepped forward, and his body tore through the void and instantly appeared before the god engulfing skeleton. A dazzling light as bright as the sun burst forth from his fist. "What? So fast?" The god engulfing skeleton was given a fright. However, the scythe in its hand was even faster than Lin's, and it slashed through the void in a lethal trajectory. And Lin's eyes had already become pure white, and everything before his eyes seemed to have slowed down to a crawl. He leaned forward and evaded the scythe's attack with his agile movement techniques, while unleashing a powerful punch at the same time. Bam! A golden divine power surged forth, and the terrifying shockwave even sent the nearby infernal Abyss Emperor flying. The god engulfing skeleton also let loose a wail of anguish as it plummeted from the sky. How could this be? How could he be so powerful? The god engulfing skeleton could sense that Lin's power had already reached the Dao integration pinnacle stage. No, I must have been too careless just now. At this moment, a piercingly cold sword intent surged through the void. 99 white, celestial swords exuded a boundless sword might, and their radiance illuminated the entire realm. A black divine halo appeared above Lin's head, from which a paramount divine might exuded. The power of the heavenly metal god was imbued into each and every one of the celestial swords, imbuing them with the power to destroy all things. 6 strikes of the war god, 100 sword. Streaks of sharp sword projections descended from the sky. The god engulfing skeleton sensed a lethal threat from these sword projections, and it hurriedly swung its crimson scythe, to block the flying swords. However, each and every flying sword weighed hundreds of millions of tons, and it was as if they were trying to push through everything in their path. The explosive collisions caused its bones to tremble violently, and it almost lost its grip on the scythe. What kind of terrifying power was this? Enlin could actually wield this kind of power. The god engulfing skeleton knew that Enlin could wield powers similar to the metal gods. However, wasn't the number of times he could use it? How could he use it so recklessly? Finally, the celestial swords broke through the god engulfing skeleton's defenses and landed on its body. The extreme sharpness of the swords crashed into its bones, instantly tearing apart its Tao bones, which were as tough as immortal tools. Ah! The god engulfing skeleton howled in anguish again. Boom, boom, boom. Sword intent exploded, and bones flew everywhere. All 99 celestial swords fell in an instant. The god engulfing skeleton had already been punctured by the celestial swords, and it lay on the ground riddled with wounds. The evil-slaying sword transformed into the last of the 100 swords, and an extremely dazzling light erupted from it as it descended from the sky and pierced through the god engulfing skeleton's chest, pinning it to the ground. Enlin descended from the sky and stomped a foot onto the god engulfing skeleton's head. A hint of a smile appeared on his face. Is this all a void spirit tribe super mighty figure can do? Little Mouse Enlin hasn't even used his full strength yet. The god engulfing skeleton coughed up a few shattered bones, and a dazed expression appeared on its face. How could this be? How could your aura and power have suddenly become so much more powerful? You clearly have the power to back off, so why did you run away? It was unable to reconcile the disheveled Enlin from before with the incomprehensibly powerful Enlin at this moment. As for the infernal Abyss Emperor, it was trembling uncontrollably in the distance, and it didn't even dare to make a sound. It had clearly been scared out of its wits. This man wasn't Little Mouse Enlin. This was Enlin Daddy. Chapter 1754. Lu Mingxian knew just how powerful the god engulfing skeleton was. It had once forced him into a corner. However, never would he have thought that the powerful god engulfing skeleton would be trampled underfoot by Enlin in the blink of an eye. Even though the god engulfing skeleton had been severely wounded and had experienced a fierce battle, it shouldn't have been this weak. The only explanation was that Enlin was far too powerful. Furthermore, he was far more powerful than the god engulfing skeleton. Enlin, if I hadn't been severely wounded during my battle with Lu Mingxian, you definitely wouldn't have. Bam! Enlin's fist smashed into the god engulfing skeleton skull. Golden shockwaves shattered the earth within a radius of several dozen kilometers. The god engulfing skeleton roared in pain. Enlin threw another punch. Who allowed you to speak? Bam! What are you screaming for? Bam! Ugh! The golden shockwaves from the collision shook the earth beyond recognition. Enlin activated his Earth Lotus Supreme skill and unleashed a relentless barrage of punches, battering the god engulfing skeleton beyond recognition. The infernal Abyss Emperor trembled in fear as it tried to sneak away. At this moment, a sense of impending doom suddenly welled up in its heart. Infernal Abyss Emperor, you lowly ant. If you take another step away from me, I'll kill you first. Enlin's voice drifted over, causing the infernal Abyss Emperor to stiffen in fear. It didn't dare to move. At the same time, in a place far away from the battlefield, the power of the flying sword that carried Lu Qianhuan had completely dissipated. She was still immersed in the pain of losing her father. At this moment, there seemed to be an explosion in the distance. The explosion was like a golden star. Although she couldn't sense its power, it was easy to imagine that it was an earth-shattering battle. The direction of this battle. Lu Qianhuan's heart jolted. She discovered that the battle was taking place right where Lu Mingxian was. But hadn't Lu Mingxian expended all of his energy to save her? How could such an intense battle still be taking place? Lu Qianhuan gritted her teeth and looked toward the direction where the battle had erupted. Without any hesitation, she leaped onto her sword and flew toward the center of the battle. Although the chances were slim, what if Lu Mingxian was still alive? What if he was still alive? She was not willing to give up any hope, even at the cost of her life. Lu Qianhuan flew very quickly on her sword, and it didn't take her long to arrive at the battlefield. Then, she saw the most unimaginable and fantastical scene in her life. Her father, Lu Mingxian, was safe and sound in a huge protective healing formation. Elsewhere, Enlin was attacking the god engulfing skeleton from both sides in a frenzy. The powerful god engulfing skeleton was like a helpless lamb that had been forced into a corner. It frantically unleashed its power of the divine Tao to defend itself against Enlin's attacks, but it was still beaten beyond recognition. That's what you get for chasing me. Boom, boom, boom. How dare you mock me? Pa, pa, pa. Didn't you say I'm a little mouse? Now that you're being ridden by a little mouse, who the hell are you? Bam, bam, bam. Enlin was having a great time when he suddenly sensed a burst of energy approaching from the distance. He raised his head and saw a shocked woman in the distance. My God, Lu Qianhuan, why are you here? Enlin was pleasantly surprised. Enlin, it really is you. Lu Qianhuan's eyes shimmered, and her voice trembled slightly. I am. Enlin smiled and said, I'm here for revenge, and I even saved your father. No need to thank me. I'm just doing what I should. You're here for revenge as well? Lu Qianhuan was shocked. What a coincidence. I'm here for revenge as well. Enlin was also shocked. My enemy is the god engulfing skeleton. Who's your enemy? Lu Qianhuan's gaze swept across the battlefield. Then she extended a slender, jade-like finger and pointed at the pitch-black, two-headed monster that was rooted to the spot. My enemy is the infernal Abyss Emperor. It killed my mother. Enlin took a deep breath. Do these Void Spirit Tribe bastards like to kill their parents so much? Su Xiaolan's parents had been killed by a Void Spirit Tribe super mighty figure, and so had Lu Qianhuan's mother. Her father had also almost been killed by a Void Spirit Tribe super mighty figure. This was really, boom, a bolt of golden lightning pierced through the air. The infernal Abyss Emperor didn't even have a chance to evade before its body was pierced by the lightning. Ah, it hurts! A large hole had been punched through its spirit body, and the golden lightning was still coursing through its body, destroying it in a frenzy. The golden lightning on Enlin's fingertip dissipated. Lu Qianhuan, the enemy is almost dead. You can go and finish him off now. The white-robed male's face was reflected in Lu Qianhuan's bright eyes, and she smiled. Thank you for your assistance, Juniorin. You're so considerate. She then turned her gaze toward Lu Mingxian, who was currently recuperating in the distance. Do you want to come along? Lu Mingxian looked at his daughter, who had left and returned. He felt somewhat rueful in his heart. After experiencing a life and death separation, he was already much more open-minded. He smiled and said, There's no need. I'll let you take my place. Lu Qianhuan nodded. She wielded her great ice sword and flew toward the infernal Abyss Emperor. Ow! You can't kill me. You have an unfair advantage. If you have the guts, fight me fair and square. The infernal Abyss Emperor struggled on the ground as it frantically tried to recover from its injuries. Fight me fair and square. Lu Qianhuan sneered. If we fought fair and square, you would have already been killed by me. The infernal Abyss Emperor's voice faltered as it recalled Lu Qianhuan's stunning counterattack. If it weren't for the god engulfing skeleton, its life would have been in grave danger. One black shadow after another stabbed toward Lu Qianhuan. Lu Qianhuan slashed with her divine sword, shattering all of the shadow attacks. The infernal Abyss Emperor was already extremely weak. Its current attacks posed no threat to Lu Qianhuan at all. Lu Qianhuan shattered all of the infernal Abyss Emperor's attacks as she walked toward the two-headed monster. Then, she stabbed her sword into its head. The infernal Abyss Emperor's body shuddered violently as a terrifying frost power tore at its body. Do you still remember this sword? My mother forged this sword in the past. Lu Qianhuan murmured. She pulled out the great ice sword and stabbed it into the two-headed monster's second head. A blood-curdling wail sounded once again. This is probably karma. My mother was killed by you because of this sword. Now, I'll use this sword to kill you. Lu Qianhuan pulled out the great ice sword and stabbed it into the two-headed monster's head again. Not only did the razor-sharp frost power ravage the infernal abyss emperor's body, but also sliced apart its consciousness bit by bit. Then, it was frozen solid, forcing it to endure the most terrifying frost torture. Lu Qianhuan stabbed the infernal abyss emperor a few hundred more times. In a moment of carelessness, she accidentally killed it. Rumble. Heaven and earth wailed in grief. Heaven and earth mourned the death of a Tao integration stage super mighty figure. Lu Qianhuan gazed at the dead infernal abyss emperor. Perhaps it was due to the influence of heaven and earth, or perhaps it was due to some other reason, but two streaks of tears flowed down her face. She stood in place with her sword in hand. Scenes of the past flashed through her mind. It's all over. Huan has avenged you. Lu Qianhuan looked up into the sky, and her eyes became purer and purer. Lin was just rubbing the god engulfing skeleton into the ground when he suddenly discovered that the ground had transformed into a realm of ice. The frost power even extended to the god engulfing skeleton's body. Boom! A blue pillar of light soared into the sky. The area within a radius of 50 kilometers instantly transformed into a realm of extreme frost. The power of the divine Tao threatened to freeze the entire heaven and earth. Lin looked toward the female at the center of the pillar of light. He took a deep breath. Lu Qianhuan, you've attained the divine Tao. Chapter 1755. Xiaohong's death had always been a thorn in Lu Qianhuan's heart. Due to this incident, even though she possessed the ancient sword Tao physique, she was still unable to wholeheartedly accept and love the Tao of the sword. This restricted her development in the Tao of the sword from another perspective. However, things were different now. She had successfully killed the person who had killed her mother. Furthermore, Lu Mingxian was willing to sacrifice his life for her, which made her understand many things. Everything in the past had come to an end. Lu Qianhuan's Tao heart had never been as pure and transparent as it was now. She could finally face her true pursuits. The woman caressed her flawless, azure divine sword with a vibrant smile on her face. As expected, my favorite thing is still the sword. Even a young sorceress has grown up. I am now the peerless sword mistress. Boom! Sword intent soared into the heavens. The true intent of the Tao of the sword surged through the air. Even Lu Mingxian and Lin, who had an extremely deep understanding of the Tao of the sword, were stunned by this. Streaks of blue, silk-like sword qi wandered around the woman's body in an extremely agile manner. Lu Qianhuan's body had already been draped with a blue sword intent immortal dress. The satin sash wrapped around her slender waist and wrapped around her long, snowy white legs. Her neck was like that of a swan, and her entire being was extremely graceful and graceful. Both her disposition and aura were elevating at the same time. Lin was extremely gratified to see Lu Qianhuan's transformation. This senior sister could finally be her true self. This was very good. The phenomenon of her breakthrough lasted for a whole 15 minutes. Lu Qianhuan, who had attained the power of the divine Tao, finally stabilized her cultivation base at the return to Void final stage. This cultivation base was already at the pinnacle of the kingdom of the 9 states. At the same time, she was one of the most powerful cultivators in the kingdom of the 9 states United Army. Huan, you've done very well, Lu Mingxian said sincerely. A smile appeared on the man's face as tears welled up in his eyes. Lu Qianhuan faltered slightly at the sight of this man. Congratulations, Lu Qianhuan. Lin hammered the god engulfing skeleton a few times in celebration. Lu Qianhuan looked at the handsome man in the distance, and a beautiful smile appeared on her face. It's all thanks to Master and Lin's assistance. She took a step forward, and a fragrant wind blew over. Lu Qianhuan's peerlessly beautiful features appeared before Lin's eyes. Her sharp oval face, her enchanting purple eyes, and her quivering lips caused Lin's breathing to slow down. The cold elegance of a sword immortal and her natural delicateness perfectly blended together. Thus, the woman inched closer to Enlin and exhaled a fragrant breath. Junior student brother, how do you want me to thank you? The god engulfing skeleton let loose an enraged roar after being ignored by the two of them. You're looking for bang. The golden energy vibrated. Enlin punched the god engulfing skeleton again, sending it flying. Lu Qianhuan plunged her sword into the god engulfing skeleton's chest, and ice and snow froze its power so that it wouldn't be able to interrupt them. It's nothing, senior sister. There's no need to thank me, Enlin said with a straight face. I see. Lu Qianhuan pursed her lips into a smile as she stared at Enlin with a scorching light in her purple eyes. She bent her long, snowy white legs and tapped the ground lightly with the tips of her toes. There was a hint of frivolity in her voice as she said, but senior sister has a bold idea, and Lin faltered upon hearing this. At this time, the woman in front of him had already opened her snow-white, slender legs and approached him. Her sharp chin rested on his shoulder, and her impressive figure pressed against his body. Her jade-like arms wrapped around his body, and she hugged him tightly. This was not a light hug. Instead, it was a very forceful one, as if she wanted to pour all of her scorching emotions into this one hug. Thank you for saving me during my tribulation transcendence at the Immortal Spirit Tower. Thank you for giving me a home after I graduated. Now, I still have to thank you. Thank you for saving my father. Thank you for allowing me to exact my revenge. And thank you for allowing me to find myself again. The woman murmured in a low voice. Her ravings were soft and gentle. What do I do? I feel like I owe you more and more. I can't even repay you. And Lin could even feel Lu Qianhuan's slender fingers gripping onto his back. This was a cold and emotionless sword immortal who could cause snow to fall from the heavens with a single swing of her sword. But now, she was as warm and gentle as a puddle of spring water. Could it be that you want me to say that I have no way to repay you and can only devote myself to you? Lu Qianhuan suddenly asked in a soft voice. Lu Mingxuan's eyelids twitched. The god engulfing skeleton was completely dumbstruck. And Lin's heart jolted upon hearing this. At this moment, the scorching sensation in front of him disappeared. All that was left was a unique fragrance. Lu Qianhuan retreated a couple of steps before standing in front of Enlin. A mischievous smile appeared on her face as she said, "Forget about it. I have no way to repay your kindness. I can only repay you by being your slave in my next life." Enlin rolled his eyes. "There's no need for you to be my slave in your next life. Sword Immortal Lu, just live well in this life. When you become successful in the future, don't forget to take care of the 4-9 Immortal Sect." The two of them exchanged a smile. At this moment, a peerless red glow suddenly erupted from the god engulfing skeleton's body. The evil-slaying sword and the great eye sword were both instantly knocked flying as it tried to flee. And Lin slapped it into the ground again. Lu Qianhuan stabbed her sword into the god engulfing skeleton's chest, and the power of extreme frost surged violently into its body to restrict its power. Let's take care of the god engulfing skeleton first, and Lin said. A faint blush appeared on Lu Qianhuan's face as she nodded lightly. All right, and Lin felt like the god engulfing skeleton wasn't going to give up. Thus, he immediately put a green turtle shell on its body. That's right, it was the intermediate rank divine tool, the Xian Wu Heaven Sealing Shell. This divine tool could be used to protect oneself after being charged. It could also seal the enemy's power and render them powerless. The severely wounded god engulfing skeleton was being suppressed by this divine tool. In addition, Enlin and Lu Qianhuan were attacking it relentlessly from the sidelines. Its chances of escaping were basically zero. The god engulfing skeleton's blood-curdling cries erupted from the battlefield again. It had to be said that the god engulfing skeleton's skin was really thick. It was still breathing even after suffering so many of Enlin's attacks. Enlin, why aren't you finishing it off with your sword? You should be able to do that, right? Lu Qianhuan asked after slashing the god engulfing skeleton a few times. I'm waiting for someone. Enlin chuckled and said, creating as much commotion as possible is how we agreed to meet. I'm hoping that she can detect the commotion here and come here to kill it with her own 2 hands. That would be more meaningful. But wouldn't that attract other Void Spirit Tribe enemies? Lu Qianhuan was a little concerned. Don't worry, I'll kill as many as they come, and Lin replied with a calm expression. Lu Qianhuan soon discovered that she had jinxed herself. 3 extremely powerful auras swept through the air. Looks like the lightning rat was right. There really are super mighty figures battling here. Isn't that the god engulfing skeleton? I'm here to save you. Ha! How embarrassing. It's being crushed by Enlin. If the 3 of us join forces, we'll definitely be able to kill Enlin. Chapter 1756. Die, die, die. A massive being that was as blue as an ice planet flew over from the distance. It had a pair of crimson eyes, and it let loose an eerie, deranged cackle. Just from its diameter alone, it was at least 300 kilometers in size. It blotted out the entire sky, and everything in its path was frozen in ice. If it were to crash into the ground, it would be able to completely obliterate a massive city. This was the Void Spirit Tribe's Tao Integration Intermediate Stage Supreme Being, the Demonic Frost Star. I can smell the scent of a powerful being. This is going to be my most delicious prey. An extremely short being that was about the same size as Tina chuckled as it flew over. It held a black trident in its hand, and there were densely packed golden protrusions on its head. As it walked, an extremely pure and holy golden light descended from the sky and enveloped its body, making it appear as the most dazzling being in this world. This being had an even more powerful background. It was the Void Spirit Tribe's Tao Integration Pinnacle Stage Supreme Being, the Soul Light Martial Emperor. God engulfing, you're in such a sorry state. If we had come any later, you might have died here. A super mighty being who looked like a gray monkey, who was standing on boundless crimson holy fire and holding a skeleton staff, grinned evilly with cold light beaming out of his eyes. However, leave the rest to us. We will avenge you. And Lin took a deep breath as he looked at the last super mighty being. Tao Integration Pinnacle Stage Supreme Being, Ember. Even the god engulfing skeleton and Ember, who had killed Su Xiaolan's parents, had appeared. It had to be said that the heavens were really looking out for him. And Lin's expression gradually darkened. Come with me. He grabbed the god engulfing skeleton, which he had tortured to the point of being unrecognizable. Then, he wrapped his arm around Lu Qianhuan's slender waist and stepped into the Karma Star Protection Formation. The god engulfing skeleton was tossed into the center of the formation. Lu Mingxuan's expression was extremely grave. 2 at the Tao Integration Pinnacle Stage, 1 at the Tao Integration Intermediate Stage, and a god engulfing skeleton at the Tao Integration Pinnacle Stage. Half of the Void Spirit Tribe's top-tier combat power is gathered here. We should retreat first. Xiao Fu, transfer the sealing power to the god engulfing skeleton. And Lin commanded. Lu Mingxian froze for a moment. Huh? Don't worry, master. I'll give you Xiao Fu. Xiao Fu kicked 7 large stars with a smile, pinning the god engulfing skeleton to the ground. Lu Mingxian, Lu Qianhuan, I'll leave the god engulfing skeleton to you too. As long as you don't kill it, you can torture it however you want. And Lin continued. Leave it to me. Lu Qianhuan licked her lips, and a vast divine power erupted from the great ice sword in her hand. She appeared to be itching for battle. She had just attained the power of the divine Tao, so she was perfect as a test subject. You're not going to run? Lu Mingxuan's eyes widened. Run? Why should I run? And Lin turned toward the 3 Tao Integration Stage super mighty figures who were charging toward him with menacing auras. Can't you see? What did you see? Lu Mingxian was perplexed. An extremely terrifying aura exploded from Lin's body. He smirked and said, The 3 of them have been surrounded by me. Lu Mingxian, Lu Qianhuan's eyes rippled with excitement. How domineering! And Lin unfurled his wings of wind, and he soared into the sky. He then whistled through the air toward the three super mighty figures. Ha ha! And Lin, you've already been surrounded by us. There's nowhere for you to run. The demonic frost star roared with laughter. However, before it could finish laughing, it was suddenly given a fright. Holy F***CK. He's attacking us. Has he gone mad? Ember chuckled coldly. The Soul Light Martial Emperor raised its little black trident, and its battle intent surged. You got guts. I'll give you a dignified death. Two of them were at the Tao Integration Pinnacle stage, while the other was at the Tao Integration Intermediate stage. If they teamed up, they could easily dominate the Void Spirit Realm. Unless a god of creation was present, they truly didn't fear anyone. Even if Enlin was very powerful, could he be more powerful than a god of creation? Since he wasn't, then he could only be beaten to the ground. Enlin activated his maxed-out Earth Lotus Supreme skill. His fist was imbued with the boundless power of Earth, and he ferociously punched out. Let me. All fists are useless in my eyes. The demonic frost star rammed into Enlin first. It was imbued with boundless kinetic energy, and a light collision was enough to destroy the world. At the same time, it was also imbued with boundless frost energy. Before it collided with an enemy's attack, it could continuously freeze and slow down the enemy's attack. However, this frost energy was completely blocked by a barrier around Enlin. Boom! The fist crashed down. A golden shockwave radiated outwards in a ring-shaped manner. It was as if a meteorite had crashed into a planet. The terrifying power of Earth instantly surged into the demonic frost star's body, which had a diameter of 300 kilometers. The demonic frost star felt pain spread throughout its entire body. Its gigantic ball-shaped body was actually sent flying by a single punch. Enlin was also sent flying by the recoil. He hadn't even stabilized his body when a speck of golden light flashed toward him. Then, an ordinary-looking black trident pierced through the void and pierced toward his waist. Ultimate Spirit Body, Soul Aurora, the Soul Light Martial Emperor unleashed a lightning-fast attack. The black trident's attack speed was extremely fast. It could be said that it was the fastest among all the Tao Integration Stage super mighty beings that Enlin had fought against. It was so fast that even in his current state, he couldn't keep up. Spirit bodies had already been freed from the restraints of the physical body. Thus, they possessed the ability to appear and disappear unpredictably. Moreover, the Soul Light Martial Emperor was a spirit body at the Tao Integration Pinnacle stage. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that its speed was the fastest below the God of Creation stage. When it unleashed its full power, it was absolutely impossible to defend against. The black trident pierced through Enlin's body of the war god. Blood splattered through the air, and countless dark curses suddenly started to spread from his wound. This black trident exuded the aura of a divine tool. It possessed an extremely frightening curse power. Enlin discovered that his wound was being continuously split and duplicated by a mysterious power. Then, this power started to wreak havoc on his wound. Not only did his wound not recover, but it even worsened. Heaven-shaking holy fallen flames. A low chant sounded. Ember raised its skeletal staff high and completed its spell. A scarlet holy flame descended from the sky like a meteor. It traveled 100,000 meters per second and instantly smashed into Enlin's body. The holy fallen flames crushed Enlin into the ground, creating a nuclear explosion. A scarlet cloud of flames soared into the sky. The scorching holy flame transformed into a sea of blood-red flames that melted the ground within a radius of 50 kilometers. Even the atmosphere was distorted, making it seem like a purgatory. This is the most powerful flame technique that I've mastered. It's a holy flame that's superior to divine flames. Even the divine Tao can be instantly melted. Just like that, you'll be melted into ashes by my holy fallen flames. Ember's lips curled into a sinister smile. Right at this moment, A hole suddenly appeared in the scarlet holy flame. It seemed as if the holy flames of a certain nature were repelling each other. Ember's expression changed slightly. "It's just a holy flame, and yet you're so pleased with yourself?" And Lin raised his head, and a series of different flames suddenly burst forth from his body. Each and every flame exuded an essential energy fluctuation that struck fear into the hearts of the mighty figures in the sky. He waved a hand, and boundless holy flames suddenly covered the earth and sky. "I'm going to show you what it means to be a man who plays with holy flames. Come out, 7 holy flames." Chapter 1757. Ember saw a scene it would never forget for the rest of its life. Saint flames of different attributes were released as if they didn't cost anything. Using heaven and earth as a furnace, they burned crazily. Its Saint meteorite flame was also on the verge of collapsing due to the impact of the endless saint flames. What was a sacred flame? That was above divine flame, containing the origin of fire. It was a flame so pure that there were no flaws. It was the pinnacle of millions and millions of flames. Super almighties would be proud to possess a flame of this level. But what about Enlin? He actually had a total of 7. Regardless of whether they were enemies like Ember, the Soul Light Martial Emperor, or the demonic Frostar, or allies like Lu Mingxian, they were all given a fright when they saw that Enlin was actually able to unleash 7 types of holy flames at the same time. Vermilion Bird Holy Flame, Setting Moon Holy Flame, Great Sun Holy Flame, Blood Phoenix Holy Flame, Golden Dragon Holy Flame, Void Holy Flame, and Demonic Star Holy Flame. These 7 holy flames seem to contain the characteristics of all the flames in this world. With Enlin at the center, they incinerated heaven and earth. A thought suddenly arose in the hearts of all living beings. If there was someone in this world who could be called the sovereign of flames, then Enlin was definitely worthy of it. Ember was still in shock. At this moment, an invisible force suddenly appeared in the void. It was formless and silent, but it could incinerate everything it touched into nothingness. Ember's expression changed drastically. She struck the air with the skeletal staff in her hand, and a blue shield of divine light instantly formed in front of her. Rumble, the collision erupted at this moment. Formless energy surged through the void. The divine light shield was like a piece of ice encountering a raging fire. It actually began to rapidly melt and shrink. This was the power of the sacred void flame. Ember took a deep breath. "I haven't reached this level yet." Before he could finish, a heavenly dragon roared. The golden flaming dragon pounced at Ember from the side. The crimson phoenix carried with it a tremendous amount of blood-killing power as it launched a pincer attack from another side. Behind the chrysanthemum, the pure, white, holy flame vermilion bird rammed violently with the power of extreme yang. Even above his head, a golden sun suddenly appeared and smashed down. Ember, now that it was surrounded by 5 types of holy flames, there was no way for it to retreat. Rumble. The 5 types of holy flames exploded in the sky like the most gorgeous fireworks in the world. The scene was extremely spectacular, but it also made one's heart palpitate. It was also at this moment that a golden figure pierced through the sea of fire at an extremely fast speed. The pitch-black light carried with it an extreme, killing intent. The Soul Light Martial Emperor made his move again. Enlin, who was releasing holy flames to deal with Ember, was at his weakest. It wanted to take this opportunity to kill him in one strike. However, it had only reached within a radius of a kilometer from Enlin when a blue flame suddenly engulfed the entire space around it, making it feel as if it were swimming in the deep sea. Not only had its speed been drastically reduced, but it was also being assaulted by extremely cold flames. Enlin instantly sensed the Soul Light Martial Emperor's presence. He turned his head to look at the Soul Light Martial Emperor and chuckled. "You have a soul extreme constitution, right? But do you know that there's a kind of flame that can burn the soul, and it will never be extinguished until the soul is completely burned away?" Suddenly, an extremely pure and rich great sun holy flame appeared in front of the Soul Light Martial Emperor. The soul light martial emperor accidentally came into contact with this holy flame. Sure enough, it felt an intense pain. This holy flame seemed to possess an extremely strong ability to suppress spirit bodies. It furiously tore apart its body and spread endlessly. It would be very dangerous if it tried to force its way through. The soul light martial emperor's figure faltered. Its entire body was engulfed in flames as it hurriedly retreated. The great sun holy flame was a variant of the holy vermilion flame. It was even more suitable for dealing with souls. In fact, it could even be said to be the bane of souls. I'll smash you to death. The demonic frost star smashed down once again. The gigantic ball of frost dispersed the sea of fire and engulfed the entire sky. You are a small planet. Do you dare to take a strike from my starry sky palm? Enlin's expression remained unchanged. Purple flames rose from his palm, and it was as if there were countless stars flickering within the flames. The flames were the universe, and the stars were the sky. His palm was filled with demonic intent. Demonic star holy flame palm. Enlin slammed his palm toward the demonic frost star. Instantly, countless purple holy flames surged forth and condensed into a gigantic palm. The color of the palm was dark and gloomy, and there were countless stars within it. The power of the stars emanated from the palm was endless. Boom! Another earth-shattering collision ensued. The resulting shockwaves reached several hundred kilometers away. The demonic frost star felt as if its body had been struck by an endless number of meteors. The explosive power of these meteors could be said to be earth-shattering. The super mighty being that was as large as a small planet let out a wail of anguish as its body was sent flying by another palm strike. If it weren't for the fact that its body was resilient enough, it would have been smashed into pieces by this palm strike. At this moment, the firework explosion that had been pincered by the 5 holy flames finally began to dissipate. Ember's figure appeared in the sky. A torrential divine light erupted from its skeletal staff. It was clear that it was getting serious. It panted heavily, and white smoke rose from its body. It gazed at Enlin with a fearful expression. The soul light martial emperor borrowed the golden light that descended from heaven and earth to dispel the holy flames on its body. The two people within the Karma Star Protection Formation were both dumbstruck. Who would have thought that Enlin could single-handedly suppress the combined forces of 2 Tao Integration Pinnacle Stage and 1 Tao Integration Intermediate Stage super mighty figure? The rumors that Enlin is only adept at fighting heavenly gods and that he's not even at the Tao Integration Pinnacle Stage are all bullsh asterisk T. Lu Mingxian finally understood how frightening Enlin was. He was a freak that couldn't be measured by common sense. Lu Qianhuan's eyes lit up as she gazed at the man in the distance. Enlin's words are never pretentious. He's truly awesome. Xiao Fu didn't want to say anything. She had already been slapped in the face by Enlin's freakish strength many times. Enlin gazed at the 3 fearful Tao Integration Stage super mighty figures in the sky. He waved his hand, and holy flames surged and churned like living beings. He smiled calmly and said, "Do you see that? This is what playing with fire is like. This guy isn't easy to deal with." Ember's expression was grave. "He's much more powerful than I imagined." The soul light martial emperor chimed in. The demonic frost star finally managed to extinguish the flames on its body. Its body trembled as it said, "How about we escape? There's really no need to fight him to the death." "I agree," the soul light martial emperor said. "The risks and benefits are not proportional. If Enlin fights with his life on the line, I might be severely injured. It's not worth it." But God engulfing, Ember was a little hesitant. Boom! Right at this moment, an extremely dense and terrifying aura erupted from the ground. How laughable. Are you guys discussing whether or not to escape right in front of me? Have you forgotten that I've already surrounded you? Don't even think about escaping. Enlin stood in the sea of holy flames. He raised his head, and a cold glint appeared in his eyes. "Ha ha! How laughable! How can you stop us if we want to escape?" Enlin wore a disdainful expression. Setting aside the fact that we can escape in different directions, even if you chase after me alone, your speed won't be enough for me. The Soul Light Martial Emperor said calmly. With your strength, you can only catch up to me at most. The demonic Frost Star said mockingly. Wait, something doesn't seem right? The demonic Frost Star immediately regretted its words. F***CK. In the end, it seems like I'm the one in the most danger. If Enlin really wanted to catch someone to vent his anger on, then wouldn't it be the best target? The gigantic planet started to tremble in fear. Chapter 1758. The god-engulfing skeleton instantly panicked upon seeing this. You can't run away, even if it's not for me. Think about yourselves. If you don't get rid of Enlin now, you'll be releasing a tiger back into the mountains. Think about it. Only a few years have passed, and Enlin has already become so powerful. If he is allowed to continue to grow, the god-engulfing skeleton's words instantly brought the 3 Tao integration stage super mighty figures back to their senses. That's right, Enlin was already so awesome now. If he was given more time to develop, it was said that this guy was a vengeful character. This child's potential was terrifying. He definitely couldn't be allowed to live. I also think we should fight, the demonic Frost Star chimed in. If you want to fight, fight by yourself. I'll be leaving first. The Soul Light Martial Emperor couldn't help but feel a little uneasy. At its current cultivation realm, it could faintly sense death, urging it to leave this place. Demonic Frost Star, if the Soul Light Martial Emperor insisted on leaving, how could they possibly continue fighting? I think you guys really don't care about what I said. And Lin looked at the 3 super powerful beings who were still thinking about whether to fight or flee, and sighed softly. Now that you're surrounded by me, you really have no other way out but to fight to the death. With Enlin at the center, the boundless Saint Flames suddenly began to rapidly shrink, pouring back into his body. It wasn't just the Saint Flames. His body actually began to change. The pure holy flame fused perfectly with his meridians, flesh, and bones. His aura began to climb crazily. Regardless of whether it was the demonic Frost Star, Ember, or the Soul Light Martial Emperor, their expressions all changed drastically. He even needs a secret skill to enhance his body? This aura. When they saw Enlin in this state, their eyes were filled with disbelief. This was Enlin's buff spell technique, Fire God Mode. No, perhaps it couldn't be called the Fire God Mode anymore. It should be called the Fire Sage Mode. The strength of this buff spell was directly related to the quality of the flames in the body. Previously, there had been 1 sacred flame and 6 divine flames. Now, there were 7 sacred flames. Yes, all the flames were holy flames. Whether it was in terms of level or quantity, they were incomparable to the past. Even the creator of this spell, the Eternal Sun God, had never seen anything like this. The transformation of Enlin's magical technique could be said to be unprecedented, far surpassing the level of the Patriarch. As for how strong he would be when he truly erupted, he had no idea. Unique patterns formed by the 7 types of holy flames covered his entire body. His eyes were like stars. There was a sun above his head, a setting moon below his feet, a pair of phoenix wings, and a vermilion bird wings on his back. A golden dragon coiled around his waist. An invisible void armor covered his entire body. 7 gods set. Fire Dragon Proud State. The Soul Light Martial Emperor's scalp went numb. Run. Let's split up. He won't be able to catch up. The demonic Frost Star was on the verge of tears. Please take me with you. You're too big. I can't carry you. The Soul Light Martial Emperor said indifferently. The demonic Frost Star looked down at its body, which was over 300 kilometers in diameter, and it wanted to cry again. The 3 Tao integration stage, super mighty figures began to flee in different directions. Even a colossal being like the demonic Frost Star hurtled through the sky at an extremely fast speed like a meteorite after unleashing a mystic technique. The Soul Light Martial Emperor was extremely confident in its speed. If it wanted to flee, no living being below the God of Creation stage will be able to stop it. This continued until it saw a semi-transparent blue figure of Enlin appear before it, at an even faster speed. A mocking smile appeared on his face. I've heard that your extreme soul physique is unparalleled in the void spirit realm. Unlin asked with a smile. The soul light martial emperor's heart jolted. However, before it could even react, it saw a golden soul sword materialize in divine sense in Lin's hand. This golden soul sword was sharp enough to slice through all souls, and the soul light martial emperor even felt a hint of transcendence. This was the white tiger holy beast soul type killing spell technique. Soul power golden sword. The soul light martial emperor used its small black trident to stab at Enlin's golden sword. It had originally thought that this would be an even match. However, an unimaginable amount of soul power instantly coursed through the black trident and spread throughout its entire body. The impact made it feel as if its body were about to be torn apart. The soul light martial emperor wailed in anguish as it was sent flying by the golden soul sword. What on earth is this? Aren't you a human, Enlin? How can there be such a powerful divine sense? The soul light martial emperor was astonished. This was the first time it had been at a disadvantage in a contest of soul power against another living being. Who said that humans can't have powerful soul bodies? Enlin sneered. You have to understand that I'm awesome in all aspects. The soul light martial emperor's extreme soul physique was indeed extremely powerful. It was enough to surpass all Tao integration stage super mighty beings. However, Enlin's divine sense couldn't be judged by common sense. He had first absorbed all of the soul power essence of the demigod Holmium spirit butterfly. Then, he had absorbed a wisp of the divine intent of the four holy beasts, as well as a large amount of soul power essence. Finally, he had absorbed all of the spirit patriarch's soul power inheritance. He had truly transformed into an extremely mysterious realm. In terms of divine sense, Enlin was already at the god of creation stage. One could imagine what the soul light martial emperor had been through. It had been completely suppressed by Enlin. Trying to escape? That was impossible. It had already said that no one could stop it apart from a god of creation. In that case, Enlin would give it the power of a god of creation. Let's see what it could do. On the other side of the battlefield, after releasing his divine sense, Enlin's physical body, Enlin could still move on his own. Not only that, but he also maintained his peak condition. His power hadn't weakened in the slightest. Just how powerful was Enlin in his Fire Sage mode? He really didn't know. This was a good chance to test it out on Ember. Holy flames spouted from his feet, and he rapidly caught up to Ember. He arrived above his opponent, who was as skinny as a monkey, and punched it. Enlin's arms bulged. The 7 holy flames fused perfectly and circulated around his body. Then he used the power of the flames to instantly unleash the might of his fist to its maximum. Shielan arm, Fire Sage fist. He used his full power right from the get-go. He wanted to use this strike to test his own power. Ember waved its skeletal staff and constructed a mysterious, crystal-like barrier. Bam! The barrier shattered like glass. Enlin's fist contained an extremely explosive power. It violently smashed through the barrier and hammered into Ember's chest. Ember's chest started to cave in, and its back bulged out. Then, an incomparably terrifying temperature melted its chest and pierced through it. Enlin's fist hammered a hole through Ember's body. PFFF. Ember spat out a mouthful of blood and collapsed to the ground. In the distance, the demonic frost star was currently fleeing. There was an expression of ecstasy on its face. Haha! As expected, I'm lucky. I thought that Enlin would attack me. I didn't expect that idiot to chase after the Soul Light Martial Emperor and Ember. He's too greedy. Who can stop a Tao integration pinnacle stage Cultivator from fleeing with all their might? With how arrogant he is, he definitely won't be able to catch a single one of them. The demonic frost star chuckled as it paid attention to the battle behind it. In the next instant, it witnessed the scene of the Soul Light Martial Emperor being suppressed and Ember being smashed into the ground. This was like a nightmare. The demonic frost star was astonished. At this moment, the male who had caused countless chills to run through its heart actually turned his gaze toward it. "If you continue to flee, I'll kill you first," the male said with absolute certainty. The demonic frost star knew that if it truly fled, the male would definitely do as he said. Just this simple sentence alone caused the demonic frost star, a mighty Tao integration stage, super mighty figure, to stop in its tracks. It didn't dare to move at all, and Lin spread his hands open with a smile. "See? I was right, wasn't I? You guys really have been surrounded by me." The three Tao integration stage, super mighty figures were deathly silent. They discovered with great sorrow that although this sounded absurd, the three of them really had been surrounded by Enlin alone. Chapter 1759. Enlin had single-handedly prevented the escape of three renowned super mighty figures. No one would believe this if they were to tell others about it. Even Lu Qianhuan and Lu Mingxian felt that this was inconceivable. A single person had single-handedly prevented the escape of three supreme Tao integration stage super mighty figures. Was this really something that a human could do? How is this possible? How long has it been? How did he suddenly become so powerful? A look of despair appeared on the god engulfing skeleton's face. It felt as if it had no chance of survival. Right now, Enlin was completely thrashing the other three super mighty figures. Once he was done with the three Tao integration stage super mighty figures, he would definitely come and take care of it. What should I do? What should I do? As death enveloped its entire body, fear and remorse finally welled up in its heart. Why had it been tempted to kill Su Xiaolan's parents in the first place? It was filled with hatred. If it hadn't killed Su Xiaolan's parents, this calamity wouldn't have happened. A cold glint appeared in Lu Qianhuan's eyes when she saw the expression on the god engulfing skeleton's face. She stabbed her great ice sword into the god engulfing skeleton's body, causing it to wail in agony. Lu Mingxian also stabbed the god engulfing skeleton. Since the situation was already clear, it was time for them to deal the heaviest blow to their enemy. After all, the god engulfing skeleton had almost killed them. They weren't merciful bodhisattvas. Why wouldn't they do it if they could beat the dog when it was down? They felt quite good about doing this kind of thing. The god engulfing skeleton wailed in agony. The other three Tao integration stage super mighty figures weren't having a good time either. Enlin's divine sense had already defied the natural order, and he was frantically suppressing the soul light martial emperor. Soul power golden sword. Enlin wielded a golden longsword and pierced through the soul light martial emperor's defenses at an extremely strange angle. Then he stabbed his golden sword into the soul light martial emperor's chest. A wail of anguish sounded. However, Enlin didn't stop there. Countless pitch-black soul dragons surged out of his body and pounced toward the soul light martial emperor. This was the Azure Dragon Holy Beast's most powerful soul skill, Shadow Soul Dragon. The soul light martial emperor's body was like the most delicious food, and the soul light martial emperor became even more excited. The soul light martial emperor did its utmost to defend itself. However, there were always some who managed to slip through the cracks, and they tore its spiritual body into pieces. In addition, the sacred flame of the great sun, which could burn one's soul for eternity, filled the void. If it was not careful, it would climb and spread across its body. It wasn't easy for Enlin to find an opening to counterattack, and the divine soul condensed a black tortoise soul armor to block all of its counterattacks without exception. Despair. The despair of not being able to see the possibility of victory. The Soul Light Martial Emperor had been thoroughly defeated by Enlin in the aspect that it was most proud of. In fact, it was considered relatively good. At least it had the dignity to resist. Ember was the most uncomfortable. This was because it was repeating the god engulfing skeleton's history. What was the history of the god engulfing skeleton? That was to be pressed against the ground by Enlin, rubbed on the ground, and ravaged inhumanely. In his Fire Sage mode, Enlin's battle prowess was off the charts. Each of his punches contained the power to shatter mountains and shatter the earth. As he punched left and right, Ember's entire body was nearly pulverized. Right now, The demonic Frostar was the least injured. This was because Enlin hadn't paid any attention to it. However, it could already see its dismal and incomparably dark future. Run. I really want to run. However, if I do that, it's very likely that I'll be the one pressed against the ground in the next instant. What if I don't run? Will Enlin let it go after he's finished dealing with those two Tao integration pinnacle stage beings? Should it wait for the future to change, or should it risk its life and flee now? This was an extremely difficult choice. Perhaps, after a while, other Tao integration stage super mighty figures would be attracted here by the commotion caused by the battle here. One had to realize that the Void Spirit tribe had a total of 18 Tao integration stage super mighty figures. At least 13 of them had entered the spirit realm. However, only 4 of them had appeared here. Including the recently deceased Infernal Abyss Emperor, there were only 5 of them. If a few more Tao integration stage super mighty figures were to come, wouldn't Lin be able to take on all of them on his own? Alright, regardless of whether or not Lin would be able to take on all of them, the demonic Frostar's chances of survival would increase significantly. The demonic Frostar instantly analyzed the pros and cons of all of its options before deciding to stand obediently on the spot. It wasn't because it didn't have the courage. Rather, this was the most beneficial option. That's right, it had made its decision. It was going to wait for reinforcements. Meanwhile, in the sky above the spirit realm, 3 streaks of light, 1 black, 1 white, and 1 azure, flew through the sky at high speed. They were none other than White Spirit Snake, Black Spirit Snake, and Su Xiaolan. The 3 Tao integration stage super mighty figures had already met up, and they were currently searching for the place where the battle in the spirit realm was the most intense. The battling Buddha had told them that the place where the battle was the most intense was where they would meet up. The battling Buddha didn't appear. Instead, the violent Black Spirit Snake attracted White Spirit Snake, and Su Xiaolan's attention through her battle. They began to fly around the spirit realm at high speed, searching for the place where the battle was taking place. I've detected a few extremely powerful auras in that direction. White Spirit Snake suddenly raised her brows and pointed in a certain direction. Su Xiaolan and Black Spirit Snake immediately flew toward that direction. They had witnessed for themselves just how freakish White Spirit Snake's senses were. Even from hundreds of thousands of kilometers away, she was still able to detect the auras of powerful beings. Black Spirit Snake and Su Xiaolan couldn't help but be impressed by this. Can you identify those auras? Black Spirit Snake asked. White Spirit Snake replied with a grave expression. There are 3 Tao integration pinnacle stage and 2 Tao integration intermediate stage. Among them, the 3 Tao integration pinnacle stage and 1 Tao integration intermediate stage are all Void Spirit tribe mighty figures. Black Spirit Snake was given a fright. That's half of the Void Spirit tribe's most powerful beings. Why are we still going there? Are we looking for trouble? I can also sense Senior and Lin's aura over there. White Spirit Snake replied. Black Spirit Snake. Su Xiaolan took a deep breath. Looks like we have to hurry. I hope Senior and Lin is all right. A concerned expression appeared on White Spirit Snake's face. Tao integration pinnacle stage beings aren't just anyone. There are 3 of them, and there's also a Tao integration intermediate stage super mighty figure. I hope Lin will be able to hold on. Black Spirit Snake didn't offer any depressing words. She was still very concerned about Lin in this life and death situation. He's still fighting, which means that he's still resisting. Su Xiaolan clenched her fists. Hurry up. We have to hurry up. Senior and Lin, wait for me. White Spirit Snake let loose a clear cry. I'm coming to save you. Boom. At this moment, all 3 of them had unleashed their buff spell techniques. However, when they arrived at the battlefield, they were all dumbstruck by the scenes unfolding before their eyes. Could it be that they had arrived at the wrong place? Why was the situation different from what they had imagined? In their imaginations, Lin should have been forced into a corner by a group of Void Spirit tribe super mighty figures, and he should have been resisting with his life on the line. However, the situation before their eyes had completely overturned their imaginations. The god engulfing skeleton was firmly sealed by the Xian Wu heaven-sealing shell and Xiao Fu. Meanwhile, Lu Qianhuan and Lu Mingxian were frantically thrashing it as it wailed in agony. A semi-transparent blue Enlin was wreaking havoc on the soul-light martial emperor, beating him to the point that he was beyond recognition. A physical Enlin pressed Ember against the ground and rained down punch after punch. Ember exploded, then reformed, then exploded again. His opponent was beaten to the point where he was beginning to doubt his own life. The demonic frost star, which had a diameter of 300 kilometers, was trembling in fear. There was an expression of despair on its face, as if it was waiting for death. All of the Void Spirit tribe super mighty figures have been beaten to the ground by Senior and Lin. White Spirit Snake's beautiful eyes widened with incredulity. This brat, when did his combat prowess increase explosively again? Black Spirit Snake was also astonished. Su Xiaolan's eyes curved into crescents as she smiled. It's good that Enlin is fine. He's beating up several top-tier Void Spirit tribe super mighty figures at the same time. Our Enlin is so awesome. At the same time, the demonic Frost Star had become the most despairing of the entire battlefield. It had initially wanted to wait for reinforcements from the Void Spirit tribe. However, in the end, 3-Dao integration stage super mighty figures had arrived on Enlin's side. Chapter 1760. An expression of pleasant surprise appeared on Enlin's face when he finally arrived. Xiaolan, you've come at just the right time. Look, I've pinned down the god engulfing skeleton and Ember for you to exact your revenge. Su Xiaolan nodded with a smile. I thought there would be an intense battle, but who would have thought that my two enemies would already be lying on the ground like dead dogs? She unsheathed her dragon sparrow sword and landed gracefully in front of Ember. Ember's body was charred black, and its spirit body was in tatters. Its limbs were missing, and it was in an extremely sorry state. The divine sword, which was imbued with holy flames and lightning, was placed against Ember's neck. The woman's voice rang out at this moment. Ember, you are the murderer who killed my parents, Su Guanyun and Zhu Yishuan. Today, in the name of their daughter, I will take revenge on you. Ember faltered slightly before his body trembled violently. So that's how it is. No wonder Enlin didn't kill me, even when he had the chance to. He wanted you to do it yourself. Who would have thought that Su Guanyun and Zhu Yishuang would have such a good daughter? Ember gazed at the woman before it. The two divine Daos were as profound as the ocean. It knew that if it were to fight against Su Xiaolan would most likely still emerge victorious. Su Xiaolan said indifferently, "Go confess your sins to my parents." Her dragon sparrow sword was about to descend upon Ember as she spoke. Wait, Enlin suddenly stopped her. Although her enemies were right in front of her, and Su Xiaolan's killing intent was extremely strong, she still stopped in her tracks upon hearing Enlin's words. She looked at Enlin with a perplexed expression. What is it? A glimmer of hope welled up in Ember's heart. Dying like this is too easy on it. I still have a very good torture method that will allow it to receive a very good punishment, Enlin said. Ember almost cursed it out loud upon hearing this. Wasn't capturing it and torturing it earlier a form of torture? Su Xiaolan's eyes lit up upon hearing this, and she nodded lightly. How do you want to torture it? Do you still remember my experience as a blade of grass? Enlin asked. Of course I remember. Su Xiaolan furrowed her brows, and a pained expression appeared on her face. Just thinking about this experience made him feel sorry for Enlin. Now, I can let Ember experience that kind of pain, and I can let her experience it 100%. Enlin said, I've grasped the great perfection of the heavenly ghost palm. My palm art contains the most powerful force of Een, which can ignore the defense of the opponent's soul and launch the full damage force of the ultimate evil force. Su Xiaolan's eyes lit up with anticipation. All right, I'll leave it to you. I also think it'd be too easy for it to die like this. What are you going to do to me? My sense of pain has already subsided. Don't even think about torturing me in any way. Ember had a bad premonition. Really? Enlin chuckled. His palms suddenly turned pitch black as he ruthlessly slapped Ember's forehead. Heavenly ghost palm. Bang! A dark substance suddenly flowed into Ember's body. Ember's eyes suddenly widened. Then it started to convulse. Ah! Ah! Ember, who had just said that its sense of pain had subsided, suddenly let loose an extremely shrill cry. This cry was 100 times more painful than when Lin had tortured it. The god-engulfing skeleton, the demonic Frostar, and all the other enemies felt a chill run down their spines. Was Lin a demon? What kind of pain could make Ember cry like this? Even Su Xiaolan was dumbstruck. She didn't think that this spell technique would be able to inflict such immense pain on her opponent. Just listening to those blood-curdling cries was enough to make one feel pain. But it was so satisfying. Please, please kill me. Ah! Tears streamed down Ember's face as it howled in agony and begged Su Xiaolan to give an end. Su Xiaolan remained indifferent, but she was extremely elated. Her enemy's pain was her own happiness. She had already imagined avenging her parents many times, but it had never been as satisfying as this one. Her enemy was actually being tortured to the point of begging her to kill it. One had to realize that this was a supreme being at the Tao integration pinnacle stage. Just how terrifying was the pain it was enduring. Su Xiaolan looked up at the sky and murmured, "Father, Mother, do you see this? My former enemy is lying on the ground, begging me to kill it. Kill me. Please kill me. I know I was wrong. Give me a quick death." Ember's body trembled and convulsed. Its body rotted and healed again. Pain that contained the greatest sin in the world crazily buffed its body, giving it a perfect taste of true pain. Lin and Su Xiaolan completely ignored Ember's pleas. Ah! Ah! Ember's eyes suddenly rolled back, and its mouth opened to an exaggerated extent. Its spirit body started to crack, and its aura became extremely weak. Huh? What's wrong? Su Xiaolan was slightly taken aback, and Lin said anxiously, "Hurry, Xiaolan, hurry up and kill it. Otherwise, it's going to die from the pain." Su Xiaolan, the dragon sparrow's sword rang, and the sword fell, reaping the life of this mighty being at the Tao integration pinnacle stage. Heaven and earth mourn the death of a mighty being at the Tao integration pinnacle stage. Phew! Su Xiaolan heaved a sigh of relief. Then, she turned her gaze toward the god-engulfing skeleton, who was sealed within the Karma Star protection formation. The god-engulfing skeleton shuddered, and it looked toward Lu Qianhuan and Lu Mingxian. Can you please kill me?" Lu Qianhuan chuckled coldly. Lu Mingxian didn't say anything. Instead, he silently added another restriction to the god-engulfing skeleton. Soon, the god-engulfing skeleton's anguished wails reverberated throughout the battlefield. This was the first time Lin had used his perfected heavenly ghost palm, and its effects were much more terrifying than he had imagined. The god-engulfing skeleton was a living being that was reduced to mere bones, and it was crying like a baby. No, it was even more pitiful than a baby. It was as if there was nothing in this world that was more pitiful than it. This pain made it regret being born into this world. Why did Mommy have to give birth to me and subject me to such horrifying pain? Just as it was about to die from the pain, Su Xiaolan raised her sword and ended the god-engulfing skeleton's life. A sorrowful cry that covered an extremely large area once again rang out in the world. The woman in the jade dress sheathed her sword and looked up at the phenomenon in the sky. There was no sorrow in her eyes. Instead, there was a sense of relief and clarity in her Tao heart. "Father, Mother, I've avenged you." A thought seemed to have occurred to Su Xiaolan, and she held onto Lin's hand as she looked up into the sky. Of course, this is all thanks to Lin's help. I'll be going with him from now on. A faint blush appeared on the woman's exquisite features as she spoke. And Lin was caught off guard by her words, but he quickly smiled and waved toward the sky. "Don't worry, Father, Mother, I'll definitely take good care of Xiaolan." Chapter 1761. As the two of them spoke to the sky, tears of grief and indignation flowed down from the sky. Two super mighty beings at the Tao integration pinnacle stage had died. Heaven and earth had mourned twice, and everyone was grieving together. Yet, they were still showing off their love. I'm so envious of their relationship. A hint of yearning appeared in Lu Qianhuan's purple eyes as she looked at the two of them speaking to the sky. Huan, please put away your bold thoughts. Lu Mingxian sighed. Lu Qianhuan pouted. I didn't say that I liked him. I only love the way of the sword. I could be single for the rest of my life. Are men as fun as games? Lu Mingxian looked at his daughter's beautiful profile. He wanted to say something, but he hesitated. In the end, he sighed in resignation. As he looked at Enlin, he felt as if he was looking at his past self. He was as dazzling as the sun, and countless outstanding female cultivators admired him. Back then, he only loved the way of the sword in Xiaohong. As a result, he naturally let down countless beauties and admirers. Enlin was even better than him. He was more outstanding, and he was even more stunning. However, at the same time, the female cultivators who liked Enlin were even more outstanding. Even his daughter had fallen for him. If Enlin was too single-minded and let down others, then others would probably fall for him the moment they met Enlin. If this didn't involve Lu Qianhuan, Lu Mingxian would definitely praise Enlin for doing a good job. However, what a sin. Lu Mingxian felt a headache coming on. With my soul, I offer my speed. The Soul Light Martial Emperor was terrified by the god engulfing skeleton and ember. It immediately ignited its own consciousness and sliced off half of its body to use as fuel as it frantically fled into the distance. It was the only super mighty being on the battlefield who hadn't been crushed to the ground by Enlin. Instead, it had bitterly endured. At this moment, it used its final trump card to flee into the distance. The divine sense in Lin sliced the Soul Light Martial Emperor in half with a single sword strike. However, the two halves of its body continued to flee into the distance, and Lin slashed out over 100 times at lightning speed. However, the Soul Light Martial Emperor didn't dodge at all. It focused all of its energy on speed. Even though its body was sliced into over 100 pieces, it still continued to flee. Damn it, for the sake of escaping, you don't want your life anymore. And Lin realized that the other party was using his own life and cultivation as fuel to escape. This kind of escape method allowed the Soul Light Martial Emperor to obtain unparalleled speed. However, the side effects were that the Soul Light Martial Emperor's cultivation would fall in the future. Moreover, the Soul Light Martial Emperor's life force would also be greatly depleted. If the Soul Light Martial Emperor used this method excessively, he might even lose his life before he could escape. The Soul Light Martial Emperor had used an extreme method to finally escape from Enlin's demonic clutches. Damn, it's too scary, really too scary. The Soul Light Martial Emperor shuddered at the thought of Ember and the god engulfing skeleton's misfortune. It didn't even look back as it fled into the distance. Enlin's expression was one of regret. The Soul Light Martial Emperor was simply too fast. He couldn't catch up to it. If he paid a price, he could forcefully catch up, but that was not good for his soul. It was not worth it to do so for a piece of trash. The two Enlins merged back into one. Enlin, what technique is that? How are you able to split into two? Su Xiaolan asked curiously. Furthermore, both of them are so powerful. Enlin replied smugly. It's because my divine sense is badass. Su Xiaolan, that's not the explanation I want. At this moment, Black Spirit Snake and White Spirit Snake flew over with a planet emanating frosty energy in their hands. Senior Enlin, how should we deal with this planet? White Spirit Snake asked. Do you want to unleash a heavenly ghost palm? There was a hint of excitement in Black Spirit Snake's eyes. The demonic frost star was on the verge of tears upon hearing this. Just kill me. It didn't want to live anymore. All it wanted was a comfortable death. And Lin stroked his chin. He was intrigued as he mulled over how he should deal with this massive planet. Logically speaking, there wasn't any deep hatred between him and the demonic frost star. Using a perfected heavenly ghost palm to deal with this small planet monster was a bit too much. The demonic frost star sensed that Enlin's killing intent toward it wasn't very strong. Sect leader Enlin, if you spare my life, I'm willing to divulge a crucial piece of information to you, it said hurriedly. And Lin's heart jolted. Oh, tell me what information it is. If it's valuable enough, I can consider sparing your life. You'll definitely be interested, the demonic frost star said smugly. This time, the spirit realm has opened to the core region. I know the location of the Spirit Patriarch Palace. Everyone's expression changed drastically upon hearing this. Spirit Patriarch Palace? Could it be the place where the Spirit Patriarch perished? Black Spirit Snake's eyes burned with excitement. Doesn't that mean the Spirit Patriarch's inheritance is inside? Su Xiaolan was also tempted. The demonic frost star was finally more confident upon seeing everyone's interest. That's right. It's the Spirit Patriarch's tomb. I only learned of its location after receiving a message from my subordinates. I originally wanted to head there directly with Ember and the Soul Light Martial Emperor. Who would have thought? The entire Void Spirit tribe would go crazy for an inheritance inside. Do you guys want it? As long as you agree to let me go, I can lead the way for you. Everyone's breathing quickened. It was clear that they were extremely eager to obtain the inheritance. This was the Spirit Patriarch's inheritance, a god of creation stage inheritance. Who wouldn't want it? And Lin's expression became strange. He silently took out an intricate palm-sized palace. This is the Spirit Patriarch Palace you're talking about, right? The air instantly fell silent. Everyone fell into a strange silence. And Lin tossed the palace in his palm into the sky. The exquisite palace expanded with a loud boom, extending endlessly. Then it transformed into a colossus that lay dormant on the ground, causing the ground to cave in. An ancient and desolate aura emanating from it made everyone present sense that it was extraordinary. White Spirit Snake, Su Xiaolan, Lu Mingxian, and the others all widened their eyes in shock. It was as if they had seen something incomprehensible. They stared dumbfoundedly at the scene before them. The demonic frost star's body trembled violently. The volcanoes on the surface of its body directly exploded in fright. No, how is this possible? How could this be true? You refined the Spirit Patriarch Palace. And Lin nodded. How else do you think I obtained such a powerful consciousness? Everyone came to a sudden realization. That's right. That explains everything. Why did Lin suddenly possess such an extraordinary consciousness technique? This was all because he had obtained the Spirit Patriarch's inheritance. Boom! The demonic frost star crashed heavily into the ground. It knelt before Lin. It had thought that obtaining the location of the Spirit Patriarch Palace would be a bargaining chip for its survival. However, who would have thought that Lin had already played around with it? Not only that, but he had even taken the palace with him. It finally understood what true despair was. Even Black Spirit Snake couldn't help but sigh with emotion. I really don't know what you've been through, Lin. We're still trying to meet up with the others, and you've already taken the Spirit Patriarch Palace. And Lin stowed the palace away before asking with an intrigued expression, So, my adorable little ball, do you have any other valuable things or information? The demonic frost star was already in despair. It didn't think that Lin would still be willing to give it a chance. It couldn't help but ponder seriously. I have another piece of information that is also very valuable. Chapter 1762. Tell me about it. If you can provide me with information comparable to the Spirit Patriarch Palace, then I'll let you go, and Lin urged. The demonic frost star nodded, causing the ground to tremor violently. I discovered a very dangerous place. Chaotic turbulence wreaked havoc there, and the laws here have collapsed. There are a series of ghastly ravines, broken mountains, rivers of blood, as well as unimaginably gargantuan corpses that exuded peculiar energy. Due to my large body size, it was too difficult for me to evade or resist the chaotic turbulence. I was severely wounded during one of my explorations, so I gave up. And Lin understood what the demonic frost star was trying to say. You're saying that place is the remains of a battlefield? That's right, and it's a very high-level battlefield. The demonic frost star replied with excitement. I'm pretty powerful, right? But in that place, even residual battle energy that has been accumulated for countless years can injure me. Everyone looked at the demonic frost star with peculiar expressions. The demonic frost star could see from their expressions that it was very difficult to convince them. It couldn't help but feel stifled. "Are you looking down on this planet?" And Lin nodded. "All right, you lead the way. If I'm satisfied with that place, then I'll let you go." He then turned to everyone else. "What do you guys think? This is a rare opportunity. We can go and have a look," Black Spirit Snake suggested. "I'll go with you." Lu Qinhuan smiled. Lu Mingxian heaved a forlorn sigh. "I'll go as well." He just didn't want to see anything happen to his daughter. Su Xiaolan had already exacted her revenge, so she would naturally follow in Lin wherever he went. White Spirit Snake was a little hesitant. Didn't we agree to meet up first before moving together? Haven't we met up now?" Black Spirit Snake asked, and Lin suddenly came to a realization. "I think there's still a monkey?" Black Spirit Snake and Su Xiaolan came to a sudden realization. "That's right. Where's the battling Buddha?" They had agreed that he would trigger the battle, and everyone would follow the traces of the battle to successfully meet up. The four of them had met up, but the battling Buddha was nowhere to be seen. An awkward expression appeared on Black Spirit Snake's face. "What do we do now? We've already achieved our goal before we even meet up. It doesn't matter if we meet up or not. Besides, no one can do anything to it in this place. Even if we can't defeat it, we can still escape," and Lin said. Everyone felt that it made sense. Just like that, they stood on the small planet and flew toward the spirit realm's black pole. Elsewhere in the spiritual realm, outside the large ruins, the majestic Monkey King stood outside the gate of the ruins with a massive golden staff in his hand, keeping all of the Void Spirit Tribe powerful beings at bay. The battling Buddha was quite perplexed. There had already been hundreds of battles here, and there had even been one between Dao Integration Stage super mighty figures, but none of his companions had discovered this place. Could it be that the way he fought was wrong? This shouldn't be happening. The monkey was very exasperated, and it turned to look at the Void Spirit Tribe powerful beings in the distance. "What? Are there no powerful beings in the Void Spirit Tribe? You think a mere Ice Soul Emperor can break through my defense? Call a few more Dao Integration Stage super mighty figures over." The Void Spirit Tribe powerful beings in the distance were about to have a mental breakdown. Did he really think that Dao Integration Stage super mighty figures were to buy his dish? They looked at the ferocious monkey standing proudly at the gate, then at the Ice Soul Emperor, who had been pummeled beyond recognition, and their hearts were filled with grief. Wasn't it better for everyone to explore the ruins together? They had clearly discovered the ruins, but they weren't exploring it. Instead, they were blocking the way. What the hell was this monkey after? Was there something wrong with this monkey's head? A blue star flew through the air before plummeting toward the black pole in the sky. The monkey also noticed this, and its pupils contracted slightly. This is no ordinary shooting star. It's a life form in this world. So be it. It's too far away. The battling Buddha shook his head. "Let's focus on this place and do something big. Otherwise, they won't even notice this place." There were different colors in the sky, and all of them fanned out in all directions. At this moment, at the Black Pole, within a chaotic and perilous battlefield, there was an extremely large orange lake. From one side of the lake to the other, one could only see the orange water intersecting with the inky black sky. There was no land in sight. At the center of the massive orange lake, there was a small white island that was glowing with a holy light, as if it were a holy pearl between heaven and earth. A white creature with a horse's body and a human head with spikes all over its body looked into the distance. "The passageway to the continent has been opened. We can finally be free." A woman drenched in blood opened her scarlet eyes and said in an ethereal voice, "How many years has it been? Finally, it's our turn. I want to live. I want more blood, bam." A pitch black, bladeless, and heavy sword smashed onto the island. Massive waves instantly swept through the massive orange lake. An inky black humanoid male with crimson eyes and a pair of demonic horns exhaled an extremely rich demonic aura from his mouth. "I've wasted countless years in the holy ground. I wonder how many living beings on this continent still remember the mighty name of the ancient Fiend Celestial. Master, ancient fiend celestial, countless living beings must remember you. A fawning expression appeared on the horse-bodied, human-headed creature's face. The ancient fiend celestial spoke in a husky voice. We paid far too heavy a price in order to plot against the spirit patriarch, and we were almost killed by the monarch's spirit. However, the rewards were quite good. At the very least, I obtained the soul mantra that I yearned for and successfully separated my body and soul. My breakthrough is already 90% complete. All I have to do is return to the Tai Chu continent and use the power of the heavenly Tao to complete the God of Creation stage. A frosty light erupted from the ancient fiend celestial's eyes, and his killing intent almost made the entire lake churn. I'm going to drag Cyril down with me this time. Your wish will be granted. The woman with blood all over her body bowed slightly. You've already shed your mortal body, and you'll become a true God of Creation stage mighty figure when you return. Cyril is no match for you. If one were to look down from above, they would discover that this was only the stomach of a gargantuan god fiend, upon which a vast amount of liquid had already accumulated. Right at this moment, a star suddenly fell from the sky. The resulting shock waves even caused the ancient fiend celestial's location to tremor slightly. I can smell blood. The woman licked the blood from the corners of her lips. Demonic maiden, we don't have much time left. We only have 30 hours, and our opponents are Tao integration stage super mighty figures. If you plan on devouring those ignorant fools, I suggest you take the 9 holy demons with you. The ancient fiend celestial spoke in an indifferent voice. He. All right, I'll take the 9 holy demons with me. 15 minutes is more than enough to deal with them. The woman with blood all over her body chuckled before transforming into a streak of crimson light and flying toward the place where she had fallen. Chapter 1763. The gargantuan star lay on the ground and looked up ahead with a hint of shock and horror on its face. This is the ancient battlefield. I wonder what kind of battle took place to transform this entire area into a perilous realm. This place was the extreme of the black sky. The sky was extremely dim, and it should have been very dark. However, because there were countless remnants of terrifying energy in the void and the earth in front of them, the world was illuminated, and there was a sense of fatal danger. And Lin, Su Xiaolan, and the others jumped off the star and surveyed the environment up ahead with interest. There were many ghastly battle scars up ahead, including some mountains that had been sliced in half. Some of the earth had caved in, and it was impossible to tell how deep it was. Some of the spatial rifts had yet to heal, and countless black and white chaotic turbulence was wreaking havoc from within. White Spirit Snake closed her eyes and carefully sensed her surroundings before speaking in a soft voice. There's a very powerful soul power and the power of a true demon floating up ahead. Aside from that, there's also a very unfamiliar power that I've never seen before. The Void Spirit Tribe and the True Demon Tribe battled here. There's also an unfamiliar tribe here. Black Spirit Snake immediately summarized White Spirit Snake's findings. There's also an unfamiliar tribe here. That's interesting. And Lin's interest was piqued. Seeing as you're so satisfied, sect leader and Lin, can I go now? The demonic frost star asked in a feeble voice. What's the hurry? And Lin raised his brows. You can only leave after I reap some rewards. Follow me from now on. Please don't. My body is too big, and I can easily be injured by all types of residual energy and chaotic turbulence. Didn't I tell you before? Please let me go. The demonic frost star pleaded. You're not a child anymore. Do you think a Tao integration stage, super mighty being, can't even shrink down? And Lin spoke in a cold voice. If I shrink down, my power will also decrease. The demonic frost star explained. That's all right. Shrink down, and I'll protect you. And Lin waved a hand. The demonic frost star, a terrifying demonic being, was saying he was going to protect it? Why was that so unbelievable? What are you waiting for? Are you going to retreat or not? And Lin said coldly. The demonic frost star shuddered. Don't hit me. I'll shrink back. Soon, the demonic frost star shrunk to the size of a human head and hovered in the sky. At the same time, its cultivation base fell to the return to void initial stage, which was even lower than in Lin's cultivation base. Everyone clicked their tongues in wonder. The demonic frost star spoke in an aggrieved voice. I cultivate in the great Tao of planets, and the larger I am, the more powerful I am. If you force me to shrink my cultivation base will also be suppressed to a very ridiculous level. And Lin patted Gui Xing's shoulder and comforted him. Don't worry, there are still return to void stage cultivators, right? I'm also at the return to void intermediate stage, so it's no big deal. The demonic frost star was about to have a mental breakdown. It's different. We're different, Mr. Lin. And Lin was able to pummel a Dao integration pinnacle stage cultivator at the return to void stage. So any Dao integration stage cultivator at the return of void stage will be able to pummel it. How could this be the same? Everyone entered the ancient battlefield. The biting, cold, bloody wind blew over like a knife. This bloody wind was powerful enough to annihilate normal living beings, but it was merely a gentle breeze to him. Everyone continued onward, encountering all types of perilous zones, such as poisonous miasma, fire, and soul annihilation. However, they were able to break through all of them with their absolute power, and nothing could stop them. This was indeed an ancient battlefield. Many mighty figures had battled here, and there were even remnants of power that made even in Lin's heart palpitate. However, there were surprisingly few treasures here. Aside from digging up some corpses as materials, there wasn't even a single spirit-rank treasure to be found. This was completely out of line with the style of this battlefield. How about we split up? And Lin suggested. Su Xiaolan looked at the vast expanse of gray before them and agreed to this suggestion. The ancient battlefield was far too big, so splitting up was a good idea. Not only could they expand their search area, but they also wouldn't have to split any treasures that they encountered. If they all worked together and encountered an immortal herb, and there were 6 of them, who should they split it with? This was a very difficult decision. If you encounter any difficulties or dangers, use this to contact me. And Lin handed a black ball to each of the 6 people present. As long as you activate the black ball with your vital energy, all of us will be able to locate each other as long as we're within 500,000 kilometers of each other. Lu Mingxian, Lu Qianhuan, Black Spirit Snake, White Spirit Snake, and Su Xiaolan each received a black ball. There was no need to take the demonic frost star as it had in Lin's protection. Lu Mingxian and Lu Qianhuan took one path, while everyone else went off in different directions to explore on their own. And Lin carried a black ball with him as he carefully surveyed his surroundings. Most of the time, he was digging up corpses. Most of these corpses belonged to true demon tribe powerful beings, so they could be considered treasures. Aside from that, there were also some damaged spirit tools and immortal tool fragments that could be sold for quite a bit of money. And Lin rummaged through the corpse of a god fiend over 1,000 feet tall with a resigned expression. Sigh, this place is indeed filled with treasures for noobs, but why do I feel like I'm just picking up trash? The demonic frost star shuddered upon hearing and Lin's complaint, and it immediately tried to salvage the situation. Don't worry, the good stuff is definitely behind us. We'll definitely be able to find some good stuff after venturing deeper into the battlefield. The demonic frost star was afraid that Enlin would vent his anger on it. More than anyone else, it wanted Enlin to happily obtain the treasures he needed. Only then would there be a chance for it to be released by Enlin. Enlin nodded slightly. He simply couldn't bear to look at these things anymore. He had picked up the treasures dropped by the Sword Essence Emperor, the Chaotic Demon Ball, the Dark Soul Emperor, the Bright Soul Snake, the Infernal Abyss Emperor, the God Engulfing Skeleton, and Ember. As for the treasures dropped from the battlefield, they were no different from trash in his eyes. Enlin ventured deeper into the forest. However, there were no treasures that caught his eye. What's going on? Something doesn't feel right. I feel like some other living being has already scavenged this place. Enlin became more and more depressed as he searched. The demonic frost star was unconvinced upon hearing this. That's impossible. The spirit realm has only just opened, and this is the first time this area has been opened. I was the first living being to discover this place. So how could some other living being have gotten here before me? Actually, that big brother is right. All of the treasures here have already been scavenged by us. You're just picking up trash. A soft, seductive voice suddenly sounded from behind it. The demonic frost star was given a fright, and it immediately turned to discover a majestic, true demon tribe female in a suit of crimson armor holding a spear as she looked at them with a smile on her face. At this moment, a cold male voice sounded from up ahead. Demon Sage Xin Chong, don't waste your breath on these two return to void stage trash. Hurry up and take care of them, then go and reinforce Mistress Demonic Maiden. A true demon tribe, powerful being with his hands clasped behind his back looked at Lin with a cold expression. Chapter 1764. Return to void stage trash. Are you referring to me? Lin blinked in confusion. The demonic frost star was enraged. You're the trash. Your whole family is trash. A Dao integration initial stage, true demon, and a true demon at the return to void pinnacle stage were both calling a Dao integration intermediate stage trash. The demonic frost star refused to accept this. However, Lin was not enraged. Instead, he looked at the two true demons with interest. The man in the front had a cold expression on his face, and he was clearly a Dao integration initial stage powerful being with a powerful cultivation base. The woman behind him was at the return to void pinnacle stage. Her appearance was quite unique. She was curvy and graceful, and her blood-red armor only reached her buttocks. Her skirt, which was made up of straight, sword-like metal armor, revealed her snow-white and slender thighs. One could even see the root of her thigh through the gaps of the metal armor, which was extremely sexy and provocative. Regardless of whether it was the male true demon in front of him or the female true demon behind him, they both gave him a special feeling, a feeling that had been sealed away for countless years. And Lin was a little curious. So you two got here first and took all the treasures? I can sense a special aura from your bodies. It's a very ancient aura, like a fine wine that has been brewed for countless years. Did you come here after the spirit realm opened, or have you been here for a long time? I have no interest in talking to a dead man. The male true demon chuckled coldly. Immediately afterward, he abruptly stomped the ground, and his body shot forth like a black shadow toward Lin. His hands suddenly transformed into inky black demonic claws that were enshrouded in a black divine Dao light. Die. This was his most powerful technique, the Dark Shadow Demonic Strike, which he had once used to severely wound a Dao integration initial stage holy demon. Both its speed and power had reached the pinnacle, and using it to kill a return to void stage cultivator was like killing a chicken with a butcher's knife. However, just as his claws were about to strike Lin's neck, an indescribable aura suddenly enshrouded his entire body, immediately following which his claws were firmly gripped by a hand. Before he could react to what was going on, another palm had already landed on his back. Slap! Boom! The male true demon's indestructible body was smashed into the shape of a U before crashing heavily into the ground, creating a massive crater. Pwah! A mouthful of demonic blood sprayed out. The male true demon felt as if all of his bones and tendons had been shattered by that single slap. Meanwhile, the return to void stage cultivator whom he had looked down upon was looking down at him from above and waving his hands in resignation. Your skin is so hard. My hands have gone numb from all the slaps. The male true demon, and Lin squatted down and looked at the male true demon with a smile. Now, can you answer my question? The male true demon let loose an enraged roar as he abruptly sprang up, and his claws tore through space as he stabbed toward Lin's heart and head. I won't tell you anything even if I die. Bang! And Lin punched the male true demon's head until it exploded. The male true demon's body was still in a lunging posture, but his head had already disappeared. Rumble! The great Tao of heaven and earth began to mourn. The appearance of a phenomenon represented the fall of a generation's powerhouse. Oh, looks like he's also a Dao integration stage, super mighty figure like us. But he looks so weak. Is there really such a weak Dao integration stage, super mighty figure? And Lin spoke in an indifferent voice as he looked down at the small planet beside him. This is probably because you're too powerful. The demonic frost star's body trembled as it grumbled internally. This was a man who could kill Tao integration stage super mighty figures as if they were chickens. And Lin wore a resigned expression as he turned to look at the sexy female true demon behind him. The female true demon's body instantly tensed up as she stared at Lin with shock and horror on her face. Who are you? The male true demon was one of the most powerful among the 9 holy demons, but he couldn't even take a single punch from Lin. This human was definitely not a return to void stage super mighty figure. He was definitely faking it. I'm the one asking you questions. And Lin looked at the horrified and helpless female true demon and said, Answer me. What's going on with you true demons? The female true demon, who was referred to as the Xian Chong demon sage, gritted her teeth and tried to stabilize her breathing as she pointed her spear at Lin. She didn't answer Lin's question, and Lin was a little surprised. Oh, looks like you've got some guts. He could see that the female true demon at the return to void pinnacle stage was extremely flustered and scared, but she still aimed her spear at Lin with the determination to die. That made sense, and Lin was able to crush a Tao integration stage male true demon with a single punch, so he probably wouldn't even need a single punch to deal with this female true demon. I really admire your guts, but are you really not going to tell me? You just have to tell me where you came from. There's no need to reveal too much. And Lin continued. The female true demon took a deep breath as she stared at Lin with her crimson eyes. You've already committed a grave sin by killing our 9 holy demons. The ancient Fiend Celestial's judgment will soon descend upon you. You'll regret everything you've done today. And Lin's eyes lit up. There's a Fiend Celestial? What rank is a Fiend Celestial? The female true demon's expression faltered before a bright blush appeared on her face. She knew that she had spilled the beans. Red demon, scorching spear. The female true demon let loose an enraged roar as her spear, which was enshrouded in scorching red divine, Tao demonic energy, stabbed toward Lin's head. It was as if an ancient fiend celestial had descended from the heavens, and it roared as if it were going to tear all of its enemies apart. And Lin heaved a faint sigh. In the instant that the spear was about to reach him, he turned his head and easily evaded the spear's attack. He then lunged forward and launched a fist toward the female, true demon's chest. The tough crimson armor was shattered by his fist, and a gargantuan, bloody hole instantly appeared on the female, true demon's chest. The female, true demon's eyes were still open, but all signs of life had been severed in that instant. Her body swayed and fell to the ground. Her slender, snow-white legs trembled for a moment, but soon there was no more movement. And Lin picked up the storage rings of the 2 true demons and refined them in an attempt to find some clues. An elated expression appeared on his face when he saw what was inside. There are quite a few treasures in there. There were very few spirit stones in the storage rings, but there were many treasures. There were ancient god corpses that were exuding powerful energy fluctuations, all types of spirit and immortal rank materials, exotic immortal rank plants, and some immortal rank demonic weapons, as well as fragments of divine tools. All of these were precious treasures on the battlefield, not taking into account anything else. Just the rewards from this battle alone were hundreds or even thousands of times more than what he had obtained from picking up trash. To be able to obtain so many treasures on the battlefield in such a short time, it looks like they didn't come here when the spirit realm opened. They've probably been here for a long time already. And Lin murmured to himself before turning to the blue star hovering beside him. Little star, you're saying this is the first place that the spirit realm has opened countless times? The demonic frost star's body shuddered as it hurriedly nodded. That's right. It didn't dare to express even the slightest hint of displeasure when Lin referred to it as Little Star. Even if Lin were to refer to it as Little Sweetie, it would still be very happy, let alone Little Star. And Lin carefully rummaged through the 2 storage rings for a while, before finally discovering something unusual. It was a scroll with a restriction on it. Enlin used the power of his consciousness to break open the restriction and unfurl the scroll, upon which he was immediately rooted to the spot upon seeing a few large crimson words. A few large words were written on the scroll: "Plan to kill the Spirit Patriarch." Chapter 1765. Enlin's heart skipped a beat when he saw the bloody words on the scroll. He thought about the mysterious death of the Spirit Patriarch, and then looked at the countless corpses of the true demons and the mysterious corpses on this ancient battlefield. Countless guesses came to his mind. Enlin continued to flip through the scroll to discover that the ancient fiend celestial of the true demon tribe had conspired with a certain spirit tribe cultivator to kill the Spirit Patriarch. However, it was written very roughly. Only the division of labor between the two dead true demons was written in great detail. The place where the plan would be carried out was this battlefield. This battlefield was originally a soul power magnetic field that could stimulate the spirit bodies of void spirit tribe cultivators to a great extent, and it was an important place for the Spirit Patriarch to conduct all types of experiments. Back when the ancient fiend celestial was preparing for the God of Creation stage, his body was already extremely powerful, but his consciousness was severely lacking. The Spirit Patriarch had a cultivation method called the Soul Mantra, which was able to drastically enhance one's consciousness. As such, the ancient fiend celestial set his sights on the Spirit Patriarch's Soul Mantra. Enlin was shocked when he saw this. A powerful being at the Tao integration pinnacle stage was plotting against a God of creation. You want to kill the spirit ancestor? It had to be said that this was very bold and crazy. Coincidentally, the ancient fiend celestial was acquainted with a spirit tribe monarch from outside this realm, and he also wanted something from the Spirit Patriarch. Hence, the two of them joined forces and set up a trap in the soul power magnetic field under the guise of exchanging treasures with the Spirit Patriarch. Neither the ancient fiend celestial nor the spirit tribe monarch was a match for the Spirit Patriarch, but they had set up a god suppression formation and a spirit annihilation formation within the soul power magnetic field. They had mobilized a total of 16 Tao integration stage super mighty figures and over 100 return to void stage super mighty figures. Furthermore, they had used 3 divine rank poisons, sacrificed 2 divine tools, and prepared a spear constructed from a mysterious primordial bone spike. They even took advantage of the Spirit Patriarch's weakness, which was that he was too engrossed in research and wasn't skilled in combat. In this grand plan, the 2 great devil saints were the pillars of the god-suppressing formation. What followed was the detailed steps of how the 2 great devil saints did it, which had no research value. As for the final result of this operation, it was already very obvious. The holy demon was still alive, but the Spirit Patriarch had fallen, so this ancient fiend celestial had most likely succeeded. Oh no! If the holy demon is here, does that mean the ancient fiend celestial is nearby? Enlin's expression finally became grave. I wonder if the ancient fiend celestial has progressed to the God of Creation stage. If he has, then things will be quite troublesome. The demonic frost star immediately panicked upon hearing this. The ancient fiend celestial has already obtained the soul mantra for so long, so he must have already reached the God of Creation stage. Let's get out of here. Our lives are more important. Enlin didn't refute the demonic frost star's words this time. Even though he was already a Tao integration stage super mighty figure, he didn't have the confidence to defeat a God of Creation stage opponent. The Spirit Patriarch's enemies are my enemies. Ancient Fiend Celestial, Spirit Tribe Monarch, I'll remember you. I will definitely find a chance to take revenge. Enlin inserted a flag. The demonic frost star's heart jolted upon hearing this. If anyone else knew that a return to Void Stage Cultivator was trying to exact revenge on a God of Creation, they would definitely laugh their heads off. However, Enlin was definitely serious when he said this. Rumble. At this moment, the sound of anguish erupted between heaven and earth again. Another Tao integration stage, super mighty figure has fallen? Who's fighting this time? Enlin turned toward the east with curiosity on his face. That was where the sound of anguish was coming from. At this moment, in the eastern region of the ancient battlefield, A powerful true demon lay on the ground with half of its head sliced off, and there was a massive sword wound on its chest from which blood had congealed and frost had formed over its entire body. A man with a cold expression and a woman in a sailor suit both wore exhausted expressions, clearly having just endured a fierce battle. How could there be a Tao integration stage true demon in a place like this? And it's a very unfamiliar face. Lu Mingxian spoke with a grave expression. It really isn't one of the Tai Chu continent's true demon emperors. Could it be that there are true demon tribe cultivators in other worlds as well? Lu Qianhuan speculated. Let's search through his storage ring to see if there are any clues, Lu Mingxian suggested. Thus, the two of them began to search through the storage ring before discovering a mysterious scroll. History always repeated itself. Immediately afterward, the two of them were astonished by the plan to kill the spirit patriarch. This Tao integration stage true demon participated in the plan to kill the spirit patriarch. Lu Mingxian took a deep breath as a sense of unease welled up in his heart. If that's the case, then the ancient fiend celestial could very well be nearby. Lu Qianhuan was also a little panicked. Crap, we have to hurry up and gather Lin and the others to retreat. We definitely can't stay here for long. It was also at this moment that the black balls in their hands suddenly had a strong reaction. Both of their expressions shifted upon seeing this. Someone was crying for help, and Lin also saw the black ball in his body suddenly tremble. He immediately rushed toward the direction of the cry for help. The situation was extremely dire. All of the small teams possessed Tao integration stage combat prowess, and some of them even had Tao integration pinnacle stage combat prowess. For them to be crying for help meant that they had most likely encountered an extremely fearsome being. It was exactly because of this that they couldn't afford to waste even a single second. Wait for me. Wait for me. The demonic frost star was completely unable to keep up with Lin's speed, and it yelled as it chased after him. It was only a measly return to Void's stage mighty figure, and it was in a perilous situation. It could only cling onto Lin's leg for protection. Wait a minute. The demonic frost star suddenly faltered upon seeing this. Wait a minute. Lin was in a hurry to save Lu Qianhuan and didn't even have time to think about it. So why didn't it take this opportunity to escape? Look, Lin has almost disappeared into the distance. He was the one who abandoned me, not the other way around. The demonic frost star was suddenly touched by its own clever thinking. Looking at things from a different perspective, it felt like the world had opened up. Ha ha ha. Sect leader Lin, I'll never see you again. I'm leaving. An elated smile appeared on the demonic frost star's face as it turned around and fled away from the perilous battlefield. And Lin really couldn't care less about the demonic frost star. He placed the safety of his comrades as his #1 priority, and he even unleashed the power of the heavenly wind god to fly toward the direction that the black ball had detected. Soon, he sensed the energy fluctuations of the battle, and Lin was extremely familiar with those energy fluctuations. It's Xiaolan, and Lin was given a fright, and he continued to accelerate. Su Xiaolan was only at the Tao integration intermediate stage. If she really encountered a god of creation stage, ancient god fiend, then her life would definitely be in danger. Xiaolan, you have a hold on no matter what. And Lin was extremely anxious as a powerful killing intent soared into the heavens from his body. Don't let anything happen to you. Otherwise, I'll make those who hurt you pay an unimaginable price. Chapter 1766. Lin arrived at the scene of the battle. Su Xiaolan was engaged in a fierce battle with a woman with blood all over her body. Lin heaved a sigh of relief upon seeing that Su Xiaolan was still alive. People always imagine the worst-case scenario in the face of extreme danger. Thankfully, that worst-case scenario didn't occur. And Lin had only just heaved a sigh of relief when rage welled up in his heart again. This was because Su Xiaolan had been wounded. The woman with a pair of sinister purple wings on her back was at the Tao integration pinnacle stage. She was very powerful, but she wasn't powerful enough to force Su Xiaolan into a dire situation. Most importantly, There were 6 true demon tribe powerful beings present, and they had shamelessly teamed up with that woman to attack Su Xiaolan. They were bullying a weak woman. Su Xiaolan was facing 4 Dao integration stage mighty figures and 3 return to void pinnacle stage mighty figures on her own, so she was naturally at a disadvantage. At this moment, there were already a dozen or so wounds on her body, and blood had stained her jade barley ink garment red, but she was still fighting with all her might. Lin flared up with rage. "Release Xiaolan, you be Astra starts. Come at me." A sea of demonic starlight erupted from his eyes, and a golden dragon coiled around his waist as a pair of wings appeared on his back. He instantly activated his Fire Sage mode and flew toward the battlefield. Earth-shattering clashes erupted on the battlefield. The woman with blood all over her body looked at the wounded Su Xiaolan with a faint smile on her face. "You're not bad. You were able to withstand the combined attacks of the 6 holy demons and me for so long. I'll give you a chance to surrender and swear your loyalty to the ancient fiend celestial, and I can spare your life." Su Xiaolan slashed the pale hand that was reaching toward her with her dragon sparrow sword in hand. "In your dreams, when my friend arrives here, it will be the time for you to die." Right at this moment, an enraged roar erupted in the distance. "Let go of Xiaolan, be Astra starts." A disdainful sneer appeared on the demonic maiden's face at the sight of the man engulfed in flames in the distance. "The human cultivator of the return to void stage is the friend you said could save you. For a friend of this level, let alone him, even if there were 10 of them, I would still be able to crush them like ants." Mog stuck out her bloody tongue and chuckled. All the Saint Fiends roared with laughter. "Ha ha! Lord Mog, leave that human brat to me." A burly true demon with arms that resembled the bodies of 2 dragons stood in front of the battlefield. The power of the Dragon's divine Tao surged forth, materializing 2 roaring black dragons on his arms. His name was Nu Long, and he was also one of the 9 holy demons. His cultivation base was at the return to void pinnacle stage, which was more than enough to deal with the cultivator of the return to void intermediate stage. If his opponent was weaker, he might even be able to insta-kill him. Rage Dragon looked at Lin and was about to punch out when he felt a suffocating aura. Scram! Lin's entire body was enveloped in a sacred flame that was as scorching as the sun. Just as Nu Long was about to make a move, he discovered that his body had already begun to melt before he could even move. Bam! Rage Dragon Holy Fiend was pulverized by Lin's body, and his shattered body was reduced to a cloud of smoke in midair. Mog's pupils constricted when she saw this. Immediately after, she felt an unimaginably powerful aura surging towards her. "You!" Mog turned to Lin and was just about to attack. Lin had already appeared before Mog, and his fist tore through the air with a sharp screeching sound as the power of the 7 holy flames imbued within his arm erupted at the same time. Demonic 9 revolutions. Mog's palm met Lin's, and 9 layers of demonic energy revolved around her palm. An indescribably terrifying power destroyed the 9-fold devil chi in an instant. Then, Mog's palm was shattered into pieces and melted. Boom! Terrifying power instantly crashed into Mog's body, and she was sent flying for over 10 kilometers by Lin's fist before crashing into the ground, leaving a long trench in her wake. The battlefield suddenly fell silent for a split second. Among the 5 surviving holy fiends, some of them still had smiles on their faces before their expressions gradually became blank. Rage Dragon Holy Fiend had been slammed to death, and Mog, who was the most powerful among them, had been sent flying with a single punch. All of this was done by a return to void stage human cultivator. Was the friend that the green-robed female, Sword Immortal, had been referring to really this terrifying? Lin. A vibrant smile appeared on Su Xiaolan's face at the sight of the man who had descended like a heavenly god. "I'm sorry I'm late, Xiaolan." Lin's heart ached at the sight of the injured woman. He then pulled out an immortal pill and fed it to Su Xiaolan. The 5 powerful holy fiends around them were completely ignored. However, they did not dare to make a sound and could only watch the scene in front of them quietly. In contrast, the demonic maiden rose to her feet with a menacing aura. One of her charred arms was quickly regenerating as she glowered at Enlin with a cold expression. Human cultivator, don't you dare get cocky. You'll be doomed when my master, the ancient fiend celestial, descends. Is that so? I feel like I can kill you before the ancient fiend celestial arrives. A cold light flashed in Enlin's eyes as killing intent swept forth once again, causing the surrounding holy fiends to falter. The ancient fiend celestial will arrive in 2 minutes at most. You won't be able to kill me during this time. On the contrary, I can delay your escape. MOG said with a confident expression. Is that so? What if I join in? A voice sounded from afar. The two of them flew toward them atop their swords. The woman's sword intent was as lofty and as cold as winter, and her sword intent was extremely extraordinary. The man's sword intent soared into the heavens, striking a sense of peril into Emoji's heart. All those who dare to bully Big Sister Xiaolan must die. A crisp voice also sounded. White Spirit Snake flew over from afar with her yin and yang dual swords in her hands before sealing the space within a radius of over 150 kilometers. You're dead meat. Hurry up and kill them, then run. Black Spirit Snake's killing intent surged from her body. All of her friends had gathered here. At this moment, MOG's expression finally shifted. If she were dealing with Enlin and Su Xiaolan on her own, then she would be fine. However, there were now 3 Dao integration stage super mighty figures and 1 return to void stage super mighty figure. And they weren't just ordinary Dao integration stage super mighty figures either. At the border of the ancient battleground, the demonic frost star was flying through the air at high speed. I can finally escape from the clutches of demons. That wasn't easy. The demonic frost star wept tears of joy. First, it was surrounded by Enlin and had a narrow escape. Then, it used the information from the Spirit Patriarch Palace to beg for its life. After that, it used the information from the ancient battleground to beg for its life. Finally, it took advantage of the fact that Enlin was in danger to find an opportunity to escape. It was touched by its own will to survive. After I get back, I have to find a mother star to fall in love with. I almost bade farewell to this world before I even had a chance to fall in love. The demonic frost star set a goal. Just like that, it flew through the air. All of a sudden, it felt a burst of resistance in front of it, which made it fly slower and slower. In the end, it was shocked to find that it couldn't fly anymore. A tall and broad, true demon, wearing a suit of colorful divine armor and wielding a black, bladeless sword had appeared before it. Are you willing to become my steed? The demonic frost star. Chapter 1767. Mount? Was there something wrong with that? The demonic frost star looked down at its round body. Which part of its body resembled a mount at all? Could it have encountered a freak? Dream on. I am the demonic frost star of the Void Spirit tribe, an extremely powerful being of this realm. You want to use me as a mount? I can crush you to death easily. The demonic frost star roared with rage. Oh, not bad. A faint smile appeared on the true demon tribe man's face. I am the most powerful being in the realm of demons, the ancient fiend celestial. Think about becoming my mount. The demonic frost star let loose a torrent of abuse. I don't care if you're an ancient fiend celestial or an ancient fiend celestial. Wait, you are. The blue star suddenly began to tremor violently. You're the ancient fiend celestial who successfully killed the Spirit Patriarch. Oh, looks like you know a lot. A faint smile appeared on the ancient fiend celestial's face. That is indeed me. Boom! The demonic frost star felt as if it had been struck by lightning. What the F*CK is wrong with me? I just escaped from Enlin, only to fall into the hands of the ancient fiend celestial? The demonic frost star was about to have a mental breakdown. Why was it being targeted everywhere it went? What's wrong? Do you agree or not? The ancient fiend celestial asked. The demonic frost star paused momentarily before replying. What do you like about me? I'll change, all right? I'm a ball. I've never seen anyone use a ball as a mount. The ancient fiend celestial shook his head with an earnest expression. No, I saw your true body through my eye of truth. Your true body is a small star with a diameter of over 300 kilometers, right? On top of that, I've been able to peek into your future through the eye of space-time trajectory. In the future, you'll become a true life form of a planet. Think about it, riding on a planet as your steed. How astonishing and domineering would that be? This is what the ancient fiend celestial, should be capable of. The ancient fiend celestial pointed at the demonic frost star. I won't beat around the bush. Ever since I saw you fall here in your star form, I've wanted to ride you. The demonic frost star, if you don't want to become my steed, you have another choice, the ancient fiend celestial said upon seeing the demonic frost star's reluctance. What choice? The demonic frost star asked with an excited expression. The ancient fiend celestial raised his massive sword with a smile on his face. I killed him, of course. If I can't ride my treasure, then no one else is qualified to ride it. Destroying it is the best choice. The demonic frost star's heart jolted violently. Insane. It had meta-lunatic. For some reason, it missed Enlin very much. At the very least, Enlin wouldn't want to ride it, and he wouldn't want to kill it at the slightest disagreement. At the critical moment, he could even protect it when it was in danger. The ancient fiend celestial was looking at the demonic frost star with an intrigued expression, but he suddenly sensed something, and a hint of rage appeared on his face. The demonic maiden is in trouble. I'll give you 3 seconds to decide whether you want to die or let me ride you. The demonic frost star trembled. What? 3 seconds? The ancient fiend celestial. 3, 2, I do. The demonic frost star's expression was filled with humiliation. 2 rivers appeared above the blue star. Those were its tears of humiliation. The demonic maiden and the 5 holy demons were surrounded by Enlin, Su Xiaolan, Lu Mingxian, Black Spirit Snake, White Spirit Snake, and Lu Qianwan. Even though they had the same number of people, the demonic maiden knew that they wouldn't be able to last even a minute in a battle. Enlin tore through space, and his body descended like a fireball toward the demonic maiden again. Get over here. The demonic maiden yelled at the 5 holy demons before pulling out a blood crystal from between her cleavage and activating it with all her might. The 5 holy demons charged toward the demonic maiden without any hesitation. A red energy crystal barrier instantly appeared, instantly enshrouding the demonic maiden and the 5 true demon tribe powerful beings. The crystal barrier glowed with countless divine symbols, and power of the divine Tao revolved around it. Boom! The fiery fist fell. The crystal tremored violently, but it didn't shatter. The demonic maiden heaved a sigh of relief upon seeing this, and a calm smile appeared on her face. My heavenly blood demon crystal is a protective artifact personally refined by the ancient fiend celestial for me. Not only is it imbued with divine rank heavenly blood, but it's also imbued with his own power. You're dreaming if you think you can break it in a few minutes. Right at this moment, a divine halo suddenly appeared above Enlin's head. A boundless burst of energy imbued within the flaming fist crashed down. Boom! A ring-shaped shockwave proliferated outward. The boundless power of mountains crushed the earth and caused countless mountains to crumble. The heavenly blood demon crystal also cracked and crumbled at this moment. The demonic maiden was completely dumbstruck. She had only just finished speaking, and her demonic crystal was already cracked. A few minutes? Sorry, I'll only need a few seconds. Enlin chuckled coldly as he charged toward the demonic maiden. Protect Mistress Demonic Maiden. Charge. Hold on until the ancient fiend celestial arrives. The other 5 holy demons all stepped forward to protect the demonic maiden without any fear of death. You want to protect the demonic maiden? If it weren't for the demonic maiden, I wouldn't even be able to kill the 5 of you. Su Xiaolan harumphed lightly, and the cries of a true dragon and a vermilion bird erupted from her dragon sparrow sword as she slashed toward one of the Tao integration initial stage holy demons. Black Spirit Snake, White Spirit Snake, and the others also attacked the holy demon before them. Unlin charged toward the demonic maiden again before unleashing his fire sage fist. The demonic maiden frantically unleashed her power to defend herself, creating over 10,000 layers of blood and energy barriers in front of her. Unlin's fist crashed into the blood and energy barriers, and it was as if a scorching flame had come into contact with ice, causing the blood and energy barriers to melt and even boil. All of the power of the divine, Tao, and defensive true intent were pulverized by his fist. Bam, 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 bam. Over 10,000 layers of defenses were broken in the blink of an eye. Only now did the demonic maiden experience just how terrifying Unlin's power was. His fist crashed in her chest, blasting a massive hole into her body as her bloodied body flew back like a rag doll. At this moment, a blue figure had appeared behind her. Feel despair. Divine Sense Unlin wielded a golden soul sword, and just the residual might exuding from the sword struck the demonic maiden as if her consciousness were being sliced apart. The demonic maiden was given a fright. This wasn't a battle against a return to void stage Cultivator. If it weren't for the fact that she had no essential power, she would feel as if she were fighting a god of creation. She had no choice but to bring out her second life-saving treasure. Whoosh! Divine Sense Unlin's soul sword fell. The demonic maiden was reduced to a puddle of blood that splattered onto the ground. You want to run? Divine Sense Unlin waved a hand through the air, and countless dark soul dragons appeared from his sleeve before pouncing on the demonic maiden in a frenzy. The demonic maiden's consciousness was being torn apart by the soul dragons, and she let loose a string of blood-curdling cries. Stop! An enraged roar erupted in the distance. A true demon in a suit of colorful divine armor flashed through the air as it spoke in a voice imbued with divine might that could strike all living beings into submission. I am the most powerful being in the demon realm, the ancient fiend celestial. If you stop, piss off. Unlin turned around and unleashed a fist. Boom! The true demon was caught off guard and was blasted flying by Unlin's fist. Chapter 1768. Master Ancient Man. The demonic maiden and the holy demons were all dumbstruck by the sight of the ancient man, fiend celestial, being blasted flying. Unlin was a little surprised. Even though he hadn't held back in that attack, he didn't think that he would be able to send his opponent flying with a single punch. Wasn't his opponent a god of creation? Roar! I'm going to kill you. The ancient fiend celestial's face was completely flushed, and he roared with rage as he spread open his wings and rose into the air, upon which an extremely terrifying aura erupted from his body. Unlin could immediately tell that his opponent hadn't truly reached the god of creation stage yet. However, even though he hadn't reached the god of creation stage, he still possessed the aura of a god of creation stage being. It was just that he was still in the process of evolving. Half-step god of creation? Who would have thought that he still hasn't reached the god of creation stage? Unlin blinked with a hint of elation on his face. The situation wasn't at its worst yet. The ancient fiend celestial unleashed his terrifying aura. But not only was his opponent not fearful or nervous, he seemed to have become even more relaxed and elated. He was the most powerful being in the demon realm. So, when had he ever been treated like this? Looks like you still don't know how terrifying I am. The muscles on the ancient fiend celestial's arms bulged as countless crimson divine patterns spread over his arms, accumulating an extremely terrifying power before tearing through space and unleashing a fist toward Unlin. Unlin also unleashed his fire sage fist at the same time, unleashing all of the latent potential within his body to elevate the power of his fist to the maximum. Bam! The fists collided. Space instantly crumbled for close to 10 kilometers. Black Spirit Snake and the others were all blasted flying by the shockwaves of this clash. Heaven and earth tremored as mountains collapsed and rivers collapsed. A black energy hole appeared at the center of the collision, annihilating and engulfing everything. This was the first time Unlin had experienced the might of a fiend celestial. He felt as if he had punched the hardest black brick in the world, and the bones in his fists were almost shattered by his own power. His opponent's power swept through his entire body with unstoppable force. What a frightening body! What a frightening power! And Lin's fist couldn't bear the heavy burden, and the sound of bones breaking could be heard. His body flew backward like a cannonball. The ancient fiend celestial was also blasted flying, but there were no wounds on his hands, so it was quite clear that he had gained the upper hand. However, his expression was no less shocked than in Lin's. "You actually blocked my fist? Unbelievable. How could a return to void cultivator do this? Who are you?" The ancient fiend celestial asked with a grave expression. "I'm your daddy." And Lin had only just stabilized his body before pouncing toward the ancient fiend celestial again. F***CK. The ancient fiend celestial was also enraged. No one had ever dared to insult him like this. Boom, boom, boom. The two of them started fighting hand-to-hand again, and the resulting shockwaves shook the heavens and the earth. Black Spirit Snake, Su Xiaolan, and the others continued to move into the distance. There were only 3 holy demons left, and all of them were at the Tao integration stage. The demonic maiden was in an extremely sorry state after being bitten by the Dark Soul Dragon. Thankfully, the ancient fiend celestial's arrival drew Lin away, thereby saving her life. However, good things didn't last long. After taking care of the holy demons, Lu Mingxian and Lu Qianhuan had already noticed Black Spirit Snake, and they immediately raised their swords to attack her. It was also at this moment that a white true demon with a horse's body and a human's head descended from the sky before opening its mouth and spitting toward the 3 of them. White liquid surged forth in a torrential wave. Lu Mingxian drew his divine sword and slashed toward the liquid, but it was as if his sword had struck something extremely viscous and bouncy. Even though the liquid caved in, it was unable to break through. All 3 of their expressions shifted at the same time, and they hurtled back in retreat. Everything that the pure white liquid came into contact with, including the ground, was engulfed by it, upon which the liquid seemed to expand again. Pegasus. A hint of excitement appeared on the demonic maiden's face upon seeing this. "Don't worry, you won't die with me here," the horse-bodied true demon said in a cold voice. It then looked at the 3 of them, who were hurtling back in retreat, and a cold smile appeared on its face. "Not only is my star demon liquid indestructible, but it's also boundless and can assimilate all things. As long as it's powerful enough, it can even completely assimilate an entire planet, so it doesn't matter how many of you come." Whoosh! A black figure evaded the countless white tentacles before charging toward the Pegasus true demon, and a scorching golden light burst forth from the sword in its hand. "If I can't get rid of your star demon liquid, then I'll just have to cut you down." Black Spirit Snake's eyes widened as she gripped her realm creation, evil, vanquishing sword tightly before slashing it down upon the Pegasus. A faint smile appeared on the Pegasus' face as boundless white liquid suddenly materialized before it to form a wall. The divine sword struck the wall and sank deeply into it, upon which the boundless scorching sword intent was quickly engulfed, as if it had fallen into a dark abyss. Black Spirit Snake's expression shifted, and her black serpentine tail whipped through the air as she hurriedly pulled back her sword and retreated. "See? You won't be able to kill me either." The Pegasus was confident in its victory. At the same time, the star demon liquid continued to spread in a frenzy, and it even spread to other parts of the battlefield to assist the other holy demons. Only then did the holy demons finally have a chance to catch their breath. "Little Black, keep that centaur at bay. This spell technique requires the power of a living being to sustain it, so it won't be able to last for long." White Spirit Snake yelled as she slashed at the holy demons. A smile appeared on Black Spirit Snake's face as she evaded the attacks of the Star Demon Liquid. "The day you lose control of the Star Demon Liquid will be the day you die. Are you trying to stall for time?" "Sorry, but time is on our side." The Pegasus was not flustered in the slightest. The ancient fiend celestial is far more powerful than you can imagine. It will take care of all of its enemies extremely quickly, so I don't have to worry about running out of energy. Boom! Heaven and earth suddenly tremored violently. Everyone couldn't help but turn toward a certain direction. There, a massive crater had appeared on the ground like a massive bowl. The Pegasus faltered upon seeing the living being at the center of the crater, while Su Xiaolan and Black Spirit Snake burst into laughter. The living being, with a bloody hole in its chest and wounds all over its body, was the ancient Fiend Celestial. The ancient Fiend Celestial coughed up blood as he looked up into the sky with an enraged expression. "That's 2-on-1. That's not fair." And Lin was still standing proudly in the sky, and his white robe was stained with blood as well, but his aura was still extremely powerful. Beside him stood a semi-transparent blue clone of Enlin, who was also exuding an ethereal aura as he looked down at the ancient Fiend Celestial. Enlin's physical body and Enlin's consciousness chuckled coldly in unison. "Hee, don't blame me for outnumbering you. I'm actually the same person." Chapter 1769. Bullsh *T. How could a single life form split its body and consciousness into two completely different forms to battle at the same time? The ancient Fiend Celestial roared with rage. He had seen powerful beings who had elevated their bodies to the extreme, such as the Holy Martial Clan. He had also seen powerful beings who had elevated their consciousness to the extreme, such as the Void Spirit tribe. However, he had never seen or heard of someone who had elevated their body and consciousness to the extreme and allowed them to battle at the same time. Enlin clasped his hands behind his back. Insects cannot speak of ice. Frogs in the well cannot speak of the ocean. Enlin's consciousness spoke in an indifferent voice. Mortals cannot speak of the Tao. The ancient Fiend Celestial instantly exploded with rage. He was a Fiend Celestial who had dominated an entire realm, but a return to Void Stage Cultivator was using this phrase to describe him. "I'll kill you." The wounds all over the ancient Fiend Celestial's body quickly squirmed before healing. At the same time, his body turned from inky black to crimson, and a crimson insignia appeared on his head. "Sword come." An inky black sword that was even taller than his own body landed in his hand. The ancient Fiend Celestial's aura transformed into one of extreme ferocity and slaughter, and he rose into the air again before pouncing toward Enlin. "You want to play with the sword?" Enlin's body was enveloped by 7 types of holy flames, and the evil-slaying sword on his back also rose into the air before landing in his hand. Thus, he slashed his evil-slaying sword toward the oncoming ancient Fiend Celestial in his Fire Sage mode. Evil Sword Technique, Royal Divine Monarch. The domineering dark sword chi extended for dozens of miles under his powerful strength. It was like a dark sword that could split the sky apart as it fell from the sky. The ancient Fiend Celestial let loose an enraged roar as he activated his body of the God Fiend to the extreme, and he slashed his heavy sword through the air to meet the boundless might of the sword projection. Bam! The black sword projection clashed with the red sword projection. One was a paramount sword technique that seemed to be able to engulf and destroy all things, while the other was a sword technique that was filled with slaughter and seemed to be able to open up a new world. The two forces were the most barbaric and unreasonable. They fought against each other as if they had fallen into a deadlock. At the edge of the black and red clash, a streak of blue light approached the ancient Fiend Celestial at an incredible speed before plunging a pair of golden swords into the ancient Fiend Celestial's chest with a wide grin on his face. Ah! The ancient Fiend Celestial felt as if his consciousness was being torn apart as a terrifying, excruciating pain threatened to engulf him. That blue light was precisely the divine soul in Lin. The ancient Fiend Celestial's mind was severely wounded, and his aura was also thrown into disarray. The black sword projection finally broke through the ancient Fiend Celestial's sword projection before crashing viciously into his body. Bang! The impact of the sword chi tore apart the fiend god's body, bringing it along with it as it fell to the ground, tearing a terrifying fissure in the ground. The ancient Fiend Celestial had only risen for less than a minute before he was slammed back down into the dust. He struggled to his feet and the massive sword wound on his chest was healing at a rate discernible to the naked eye. I'm a half-step god of creation stage being, but I'm being thwarted by a return to void stage cultivator over and over again. This is an absolute humiliation to me. The ancient fiend celestial looked up at the two Enlin figures in the sky, and a viscous ball of dark green energy suddenly surged around his body before enshrouding his entire body like a suit of armor. This is a critical juncture in the God of Creation stage, and I didn't want to use this power, but I can't hold back anymore. I want to kill you right now. The ancient fiend celestial's eyes turned crimson as he stared at Enlin. Enlin felt as if there were vortexes in his opponent's eyes that could engulf and destroy everything in its line of sight. It was as if there was an independent world in his eyes, and he was the paramount god. The ancient fiend celestial's body shrank slightly, but the explosive energy within his body swelled explosively once again. What was most alarming was the layer of unknown dark green energy around his body, which struck Enlin with an unprecedented sense of peril. Do you know what this is? The ancient fiend celestial opened his hand, and a dark green ball appeared in his palm, which he waved lightly toward Enlin. Whoosh! The dark green ball suddenly transformed into an azure afterimage that pierced through the air, through space, and through everything before landing directly in front of Enlin. Enlin's eyelids twitched violently, and both his evading turtle tortoise and Xian Wu heaven-sealing shell were instantly activated to create 2 layers of green defenses in front of him. The dark green energy came into contact with Enlin's evading turtle armor first. This was an extremely pure and insane burst of energy, as if it were the beginning of the great Tao, the beginning of the world, and it quickly tore the evading turtle armor to shreds. Enlin could sense the difference in their levels of power. Bam! The dark green energy crashed into the divine tool, Xian Wu heaven-sealing shell. A defensive divine tool was extremely sturdy, but Enlin could hear the sound of the divine tool shattering. It was very faint, but it was extremely audible. Immediately afterward, boundless power flowed into his body through the turtle shell. Boom! Enlin was blasted flying for several hundred kilometers by the dark green energy like a rocket. The ancient fiend celestial slowly rose into the air, and a smile appeared on his face as he looked at the dazed Enlin. Do you see that? This is the true difference in power. This is power that transcends beyond this world. He spread open his palm, and a dark green ball appeared in his hand again. Every god of creation will master a special type of power when they reach the pinnacle of their Tao, which is called essential power. And my essential power is demonic essential power. An intoxicated expression appeared on the ancient fiend celestial's face as he looked at the power in his hand. It's proud, tenacious, filled with boundless battle intent, and indestructible. What a beautiful and perfect power! And Lin's lips twitched, and his body flashed like a bolt of lightning as he charged toward the ancient fiend celestial. Taking advantage of the ancient fiend celestial's narcissism, Enlin materialized a golden sword in his hand before stabbing it toward his head. The ancient fiend celestial didn't take evasive measures, but a dark green barrier suddenly appeared above his head. The sword projection that had always been invincible let loose a sharp screeching sound upon striking the barrier. Divine sense and Lin's heart jolted with shock. In the next instant, the dark green ball in the ancient fiend celestial's hand exploded, transforming into tens of thousands of tiny flying swords that instantly punctured over 10,000 holes into divine sense and Lin's body. And Lin let loose an anguished wail as his body crumbled. The ancient fiend celestial looked at the dark green barrier before speaking in an indifferent voice. Your consciousness is very powerful, even more so than mine. Unfortunately, you don't have a powerful body to support it, so you're still too fragile. The ancient fiend celestial looked at the man in the distance with a mocking expression. What else do you have up your sleeves? If not, then you can die now. Chapter 1770. Enlin was over 50 kilometers away from the ancient fiend celestial. His Xian Wu heaven-sealing shell had already run out of energy, and there were still cracks near his heart. Just a normal attack had depleted the energy of his Xian Wu heaven-sealing shell and almost punctured his defenses. He didn't even know what to say in the face of such terrifying power, and Lin stowed away his turtle shell, upon which a searing pain suddenly erupted from his head again. Ow, ow! My consciousness has also been blasted apart. He clutched his head and took a deep breath. After one's consciousness was destroyed, they would return to their physical body, but their energy would be depleted and they wouldn't be able to use the power of their consciousness for a short time. And Lin, do you see that? This is my true power. If I get serious, there's no way you'll be able to survive. The ancient fiend Celestial finally adopted a crushing stance as he approached Lin. Dark green energy surged around his body, making his aura even more terrifying and transcendent. Lin took a deep breath before unleashing his wings of wind and Kuan Peng travel at the same time, upon which he descended like the sun. Hee, you still want to fight me head-on? You've got balls. The ancient fiend Celestial crossed his arms before his chest and looked down at Lin with a haughty expression. However, forgive me for being blunt, but without the power of your consciousness, you won't even be able to break through my defenses. You're nothing more than trash right now. Fire Sage Mountain quaking fist. Lin's fist fell. An earthy divine halo suddenly appeared above his head. A boundless power of the paramount laws of the heavenly gods manifested around his fist at this moment. The ancient fiend Celestial's pupils contracted drastically, and before he had a chance to defend himself, Lin's fist had already crashed into his demonic essential energy. The demonic essential energy was indestructible, while the power of mountains on Lin's fist crushed everything in its path. The clash between the two of them was like a clash between two different levels of power. For the first time, Lin discovered that the release of his power of the heavenly gods was being hindered, and he was fighting against a power that was on par with him. Thankfully, the ancient fiend Celestial hadn't unleashed his full power to defend himself, but Lin had unleashed his full power to unleash this attack. The demonic essence energy was then shattered, and the ancient fiend Celestial's body caved in from the punch, breaking countless of his bones before plummeting to the ground again. Rumble. The ancient fiend Celestial looked up at Lin, who was like a heavenly god descending from the heavens, and murmured to himself, "What kind of power is this?" It felt that Lin was refreshing its understanding over and over again. When did such a freakish being appear on the Tai Chu continent? Before the ancient fiend Celestial could catch his breath, Lin descended from the sky and unleashed another fist. Don't underestimate me. The ancient fiend Celestial let loose an enraged roar as his body rose into the air, and a vast amount of demonic essential energy erupted from his fist before meeting Lin's fist. Fiend Celestial Nirvana Fist. Boom! Countless specks of mundane light shimmered on the inky green demonic essential energy around his fist, as if it had reverted back to its original form, then suddenly descended from the heavens. This power clashed with the power of the heavenly mountain, and it was able to repress the power of the heavenly mountain, thereby creating a stalemate. Golden light crashed down, and the inky green energy erupted in a frenzy, transforming the entire sky into two distinct layers of colors, one high and one low. Lin's and the ancient fiend Celestial's arms were torn apart at the same time, and both of them were sent flying back from the explosion of energy. Ha ha! Nice! The ancient fiend Celestial swayed his bloody arm before charging toward Lin with raucous laughter. I admit, you're the most incredible opponent I've ever faced. Aside from the heavenly gods, you're also the first living being to be able to resist my power of the heavenly gods. Battle intent also ignited in Lin's eyes, and he unleashed his power of the heavenly mountain to its fullest extent as he charged toward the fiend Celestial. He knew that the enemy in front of him could give him a hearty battle. Bam, bam, bam. Fists collided with flesh, and Lin's fist shattered the ancient fiend Celestial's chest, while the ancient fiend Celestial's claws tore into Lin's lower abdomen. And Lin slapped the ancient fiend Celestial's demonic horn into two, while the ancient fiend celestial unleashed a vicious hammer toward the divine halo above Enlin's head, trying to destroy it. Each of Enlin's attacks was imbued with the power of the heavenly mountain, while each of the ancient fiend celestial's attacks was imbued with the power of the god of creation stage. This was a clash between the power of the heavenly gods and the power of the demonic essential energy. The battle reached a climax, and the entire sky was shattered by this battle. Enlin and the ancient fiend celestial continued to unleash devastating attacks, and both of them were using all of their power to defend themselves against the oncoming onslaught. At this point, even the slightest misstep could result in complete defeat. The ruins of the ancient battlefield had been razed to the ground, and this had become a new battlefield. The two of them flew back at the same time amid an earth-shattering clash. Both of them were riddled with wounds. Enlin's limbs and chest were riddled with bone-deep gashes, and his white robe had been stained with blood. The ancient fiend celestial's body had also been hammered red and swollen, and one of his arms had also disappeared. Ha ha ha, this is so satisfying. The ancient fiend celestial was chortling with glee from the fact that he was having such a good time fighting the ancient fiend celestial. A ferocious expression then appeared on his face. However, the regenerative abilities and endurance of the demon tribe are far superior to those of your human tribe. It must be very difficult for you to maintain this state for too long, right? Hence, I'm going to be the one to win this battle. I really can't maintain this state for too long. Enlin's storage ring flashed, and he grabbed a handful of immortal pills. He didn't know how many there were, but he stuffed them all into his mouth before chewing. But that's all right, I have a lot of pills. Boom! Terrifying power instantly surged through his entire body, and his injuries began to heal at a rate discernible to the naked eye. His energy also began to flow into his body at an extremely fast rate. The ancient fiend celestial's eyes widened as he roared. Roar! How dare you eat immortal pills in the middle of a battle, and so many of them? Where is your dignity? Enlin splayed his hands open. Money is also a type of power. It's not like I forbid you from taking pills. The ancient fiend celestial flared up with rage. Enlin knew that he had been living in this godforsaken place for countless years and was extremely poor, yet he had the cheek to challenge him to a competition of pills. He couldn't hold back any longer, and he spread open his wings before pouncing toward Enlin again. Die! Enlin's body flashed through the air to evade the ancient fiend celestial's pouncing attack. His earthy divine halo surged as a series of flawless, translucent jade balls suddenly appeared behind him before spreading out in a fan shape. Also, I don't agree with what you said. A smile appeared on the ancient fiend celestial's face at the sight of the human male. A voice full of divinity reverberated in its ears. Because this next state is my strongest state.